This is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 26th of November. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Sophie Reaper.
Now, the Chancellor brands her critics misogynists and urges Labour MPs to unite behind her budget. Just 24 hours to go now. Will it be the nightmare before Christmas?
Each of us must do our bit for the security of our country and the brightness of its future.
Well, last year, Rachel Reeves said that she would not have to do a budget like she did last year again. But here we go again. Tens of billions of pounds has got to be found. I'll let you know how it might affect you shortly.
Businesses across the UK are bracing for tax rises, but here in Northern Ireland it's been revealed that the government here has already overspent by nearly £500 million.
Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared at Westminster Magistrates Court of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but was found guilty of criminal damage to their mobile phone.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact.
Yes, the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, apologises to licence fee payers over the Trump documentary Chaos. And it's been revealed that BBC News had internally argued the Trump edit was justified.
An East London pub has introduced a child-free rule after 6 p.m. following a slew of complaints. Now we're asking, should all British boozers have a child curfew?
And councillors in Northern Ireland have voted to change a name of a road called Prince Andrew Way. But what will the council change the name to? It feels like Christmas Eve. Just one day to go before the totemic political event of the year, the budget.
Well, I don't know about you, Tom, but I hope the gifts I receive on actual Christmas Day might be slightly better than I'm sure what we're about to receive tomorrow.
It's actually probably an inverse Christmas Day, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the Chancellor taking away things from us rather than giving them out.
Exactly. She's hardly Father Christmas.
Although, Catherine, there are lots of rumours about exactly what's going to happen. I mean, she can't possibly do all of them, can she?
So many rumours. We feel like we've heard it all. Of course, we won't know exactly till it's all out there, but it does sound, I think you can bet your bottom dollar that income tax thresholds are going to be frozen for another couple of years. They're already frozen to 2028, perhaps till 2030. Now, OK, they've rowed back from raising income tax, but this is a tax rise. Make no mistake, Rachel Reeves said she wouldn't do it. She said it would be an increased tax on working people. I am utterly convinced that it's going to happen, and it's going to bring so many more people into these higher tax thresholds. So that's a big tax rise coming. Mansion tax, if you're lucky enough to get a house over 2 million, loads of things. Not long to find out now.
Oh, goodness me.
Much to digest.
I'm old enough to remember, what was it, 15 months ago, when the Labour Party was complaining about the highest tax burden that this country had ever had in history. That was a campaigning point they used against Rishi Sunak during the general election. And I mean, we had 15 months ago the highest tax burden in this country since 1945. And they're just jacking it up even further.
And
I mean, how much higher can it go?
pledges as well.
Astonishing. Well, do get your thoughts in. gbnews.com/you'll say is the way, as ever, to get involved. All to come, of course, after your very latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. The top stories. Father Ted creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassment but found guilty of criminal damage to the phone of a trans activist. Mr Linehan deliberately whacked Sophia Brooks's phone out of her hand and threw it on a road outside a conference last October. His trial was told in September. Westminster Magistrates Court also heard that the Irish comedy writer relentlessly posted abusive comments about Sophia Brooks on social media. Today, the judge said Mr Linehan's social media posts did not amount to harassment, but that he was guilty of criminal damage in relation to the phone. He denied both charges. Mr Linehan spoke outside court this morning.
I am very pleased by today's verdict. The judge found me and the women who gave evidence on my behalf to be credible, honest witnesses and said that my actions were not criminal and did not constitute harassment. The judge commented that the complainant, a well-known trans activist, was not truthful. There are a group of dangerous men who are determined to bully women and girls and to misuse the courts and police in furtherance of a misogynistic agenda. I'm proud to have stood up to them and I will continue to do so. I'm grateful to the Free Speech Union for their unwavering support and for helping to ensure that those who speak out against these dangerous activists are protected.
Elsewhere, Rachel Reeves has insisted she'll still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Ms Reeves pledged that she wouldn't let her critics beat her and said Labour needs to show voters it deserves a second term in power, but it will only be able to do so if MPs stick together. She said that leaks in the run-up to the budget had been incredibly destabilising. That's after concerns were raised about tomorrow's budget, which is expected to raise £30 billion worth of tax. Addressing the Parliamentary Labour Party last night, Ms Reeves argued the budget should be regarded as a package and not a pick and mix where MPs like the cola bottles but not the fruit salad. Shadow Levelling Up Secretary James Cleverly spoke to GB News.
I don't think it's legitimate to criticise person for basically their chromosomes. So I'm critical of her because she was completely dishonest in the lead up to the general election about their tax plans, that she has ramped up taxes, she is killing jobs, this constant briefing, U-turning, re-briefing, re-U-turning is crushing confidence in the British economy just at the time when we need it to be most active. These are the things she should be criticised for, not because she's a woman.
Well, MPs have been out in Parliament Square this morning with an effigy of Rachel Reeves calling for higher taxes on the highest earners. Here's Green Party leader Zach Polanski.
Rachel Reeves keeps talking about tough choices, but these are always tough choices for working class people, for disabled people, for migrants. When are we going to see tough choices for multimillionaires and billionaires?
Meanwhile, the Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. Rachel Reeves will confirm today the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. She'll announce that 250 new health one-stop shops will bring the right local combination from GPs, nurses, dentists and pharmacists together under one roof to best meet the needs of the community, starting in the most deprived areas. Health Minister Karen Smith says morale, though, is low in the NHS.
We said in our 10-year plan that we wanted to move care out of hospital into communities where people actually live and stop people being bounced around the system. Many people will have experienced this. You've got maybe a couple of conditions, maybe diabetes and maybe heart problems, and you repeat your story, you're on different lists for different tests and so on, and many travelling into hospitals. We want to stop all that. We want to build services around people and the conditions we know they have, particularly older people and some of the conditions that arise, not for everybody, but as a result of being older, more frail, people who are more frail. So bringing all of that into your local neighbourhood and crucially having decent buildings in order to provide those services.
And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he had a good and very productive conversation with Sir Keir Starmer today. It comes as Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under attack overnight, with officials saying at least 6 people were killed. Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched 22 missiles and 460 drones to attack Ukraine. Ukraine reportedly also carried out strikes on Russia, where officials said 3 people were killed. Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to visit the US at the earliest possible date in November, according to Ukraine's national security chief. Rustem Umerov says the visit will be aimed at completing the final stages of a peace agreement with Donald Trump. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
And here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3138 and €1.1387. The price of gold is £3,145.43 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,534.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
The Chancellor has accused her critics of misogyny and called on nervous Labour MPs to unite behind her ahead of tomorrow's budget. Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 12 and it's the day before the budget.
Indeed. Now, also in her defiant message, she insisted she'll be the Chancellor in 2 years' time as businesses across the country brace themselves for tax rises.
Well, one of the measures being touted is to slash the tax-free ISA allowance, which would force many Brits to start investing their money in the stock market instead.
Well, we're joined now by GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster here in the studio. Catherine, let's touch first on this tax-free ISA, I should say, slashed from £20,000 potentially to £12,000. What will that mean for savers in Britain?
Well, the idea is that rather than putting money in a cash ISA, which traditionally pays you a couple of percent if you're lucky, very often not as much as inflation is, you put it into the stock market where it may do better.
But it's riskier,
I'm not sure, actually, if it's going to work, because the joy of a cash ISA is you put it aside and if you need it for an emergency, you can get it quickly and easily, whereas if you put money into the stock market, generally you want to be looking at least sort of 5 years or more. So I'm not convinced that it's going to have the effect necessarily that the government is wanting.
And this is just one of this sort of smorgasbord of measures as it's being described. I haven't heard the word smorgasbord used quite so much in the run-up to anything as I have to this budget. But it does seem to be almost a death by 1,000 cuts. Because there's been this U-turn over the as-yet unannounced income tax rise, they are sort of trying to find every other little element to squeeze tax out of all of us in all these other ways. I mean, another one is pension savings that are going to be taxed for the first time. I mean, there's going to be a tourist tax. There's going to be... I mean, all of this stuff seems to be leaking like a sieve.
Yes, it really is. And I think a smorgasbord, as you say, but a very indigestible, or it's going to be very difficult for lots of people to digest, because they decided that they wouldn't go ahead with the income tax rise because it would be a blatant breach of the manifesto. Also, they said the OBR figures were a bit better than they were expecting. But what it means is they're going to have all these individual taxes to raise, a bit here and a bit there. And the risk is that, like we saw with the farmers last year, and of course that's still rumbling on, it will affect certain groups of people very badly. So rather than upsetting everybody but sort of ripping the plaster off, there's all sorts of things. So the income tax freezes, there's 10 billion there. But it is a tax rise, let's face it. It is a tax rise, and it's something that Rachel Reeves said she wouldn't do. Mansion tax, if you've got a house worth more than 2 million. Gambling tax, tourist tax, possibly pay per mile on electric vehicles. Cash ISA reduced how much you can. Sugar tax, milkshakes. Big supermarkets aren't going to get the higher reprieve from business rates. They're saying that could end with them closing loads of supermarkets. More likely it's going to feed on to food prices. So many things. And Rachel Reeves is saying, look, my priority is tackling the cost of living, getting waiting lists down, tackling the government debt. But the difficulty is, before the election, the government said they wouldn't need to do many tax rises beyond the tiny ones they'd announced because it was all going to come from growth. We haven't really had much growth. The OBR are expected to downgrade projections for the rest of the Parliament.
Isn't it interesting, just on that point, that would have been a big shock moment in the budget, that our growth is downgraded across every quarter next year, that it's leaked out beforehand, perhaps taking the sting out of the budget. Big boo-boo taboo, of course, to leak things from the budget. I mean, if the Treasury had leaked this, I mean, that would be a scandal. And yet, it's very helpful to the Treasury. This has magically been leaked to the press.
Well, helpful to the Treasury, but the government says its number one mission is growth, and where is it? So, and I think what is going to be difficult for them to sell is this black hole. They can't say it's of the Tories' own making. So, you know, they're blaming Brexit, they're blaming Donald Trump and tariffs and war in Ukraine and the world has changed and all of that. But some of this is choices that they have made. And £15 billion of extra benefits spending, partly because Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister have not been able to stand up to their own MPs. So they've had to winter fuel U-turn on that. Looks like they're going to scrap the two-child benefit cap, which entirely Rachel Reeves really didn't want to. But they're now so worried about pressure on the left of them from the Greens and your party and whoever else.
My party? No, sorry.
They're in an incredibly difficult position. But now, you know, opponents are going to say, look, you are hitting working people to fund benefits. I mean, that's what the Tories, they're already saying. You're hitting working people, something that the government said that they wouldn't do. Now, of course, it seems like working people are maybe just people earning less than 50,000.
I mean, it is extraordinary, isn't it, that the mood music about this budget was to try and get things back on track. We've got a big debt problem, a big deficit problem. It's making borrowing costs more expensive. And then in the budget where supposedly the Chancellor is going to make that better and try and reduce the amount that we're borrowing, she's spending £15 billion more on benefits. Yeah. I mean, it's funny money.
It's the antithesis of what she promised, essentially.
Well, Catherine, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that. Goodness me, it's going to be a busy, busy day tomorrow. But let's speak now to the political commentator Benedict Spence, because, Benedict, apparently if you criticise the Chancellor in any way, shape or form, you're a misogynist.
Yes, so I should just start this with a trigger warning. I am possibly the biggest misogynist ever to be seen on British television because I have very little that's positive to say about the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, or her plans. Obviously, I think that this is the sign of somebody who's really flapping. This was sort of said, of course, that there's misogyny when it comes to her. This was said as part of an interview with, I think it was The Times. And, it was an attempt to sort of portray her as this sort of girl boss-like figure, that she's in control of the situation and that everybody is simply doing her down because of her sex. And everybody understands that that's not true because the criticism is coming left, right and centre. And frankly, at no stage has anybody really mentioned Rachel Reeves' gender in any of this. In fact, the only people that do seem to mention it is Labour, who keep on saying, isn't it magnificent that we have a female Chancellor? Honestly, it's an attempt at a distraction, but no amount of distraction is going to fool people. They can see the economic pain that is coming down the road tomorrow. Nobody's looking forward to it. And frankly, I think they feel a little ticked off that the Labour Party, the Labour government is still using the same sort of talking points that were maybe relevant 5, 10, 15 years ago. But right now, when it's people's ability to sort of keep a roof over their heads or keep their businesses afloat, they're not interested in entertaining this sort of thing.
Benedict, we talk about this so-called smorgasbord, these rumours, this speculation which is rife. But this morning, the Chancellor has said that it's not a pick-and-mix budget, it's a package budget, and she wants people to, and her MPs to get behind that. Do you think that that's going to be the case? Do you think the Chancellor is going to receive support from Labour MP backbenchers in this budget, or do you think we're going to see them perhaps turn against her on decisions that she's made?
I think that broadly there will be support, but it won't be wholehearted. It won't be full-throated support, because I think that there is starting to be an understanding now that actually she doesn't have a huge amount of room to play with. But I think when we see what the reaction is from the public, from the press, from international markets, I wonder actually how long rather that support will last. I mean, the thing is, she can't do what everybody knows she has to do, which is to cut spending. And, we're spending almost half of our GDP. We're spending almost half of it on welfare, effectively. If you're also including healthcare as part of that, it's an extraordinary amount of money. Now, nobody's saying that you have to cut spending on healthcare or anything like that, but we've been through the whole sort of furore of how much money is spent on things like Motability, on the process of how it is that people can get sickness benefits and everything that comes with that. Everybody knows that it is a hugely bloated sector, that it is costing us far too much money, but everybody also knows that somewhere between 80 to 200 Labour MPs have majorities smaller than the number of people in those constituencies dependent on these state handouts. That's the difficult situation that she has to square. And honestly, I think she'd probably be gone if it wasn't for the fact, I think she would have already been gone, and I think probably the Prime Minister would have already gone, if it wasn't for that fact that Labour don't like to get rid of leaders. They understand how power is centralised. They don't want to rock the boat. And also, frankly, I think there's a bit of an understanding that whoever it is that replaces them, and they are going to be replaced, they're not going to last the full Parliament. I suspect they won't even last 12 months. But whoever it is that replaces them needs to be able to come up with something magically different. Do you know of such a person? I certainly don't.
Goodness me. Well, what a pretentious situation we're in. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. Generally, budgets unravel, if they do unravel, 1 or 2 days after the budget. But let's have a look. Benedict Spence, thanks indeed for joining us.
But how are businesses feeling about the big day tomorrow? That is potentially a group that will be highly impacted. To tell us more, GB News Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie joins us now. Doogie, what can you tell us? How are businesses feeling 24 hours to go to the budget?
Very, very nervous indeed, Sophie. Last year's national insurance tax that came in really hit the city centres. It hit the high street, those part-time jobs, especially jobs in the sort of pubs and clubs where people were working basically a few hours per week. That has now stopped and pubs have had to put the price of drink up. Everything has gone up inside the shops, and that's not just to do with the budget, that's to do with this bill that has came through on employment, and employers are actually quite afraid of it. But here in Northern Ireland, it's just sort of came out over the weekend that the government behind us here are 400 million on the wrong side of last year's budget, and that's not including the 120 million that they have to produce for the data breach. You remember that PSNI data breach last year to deal with that. But I spoke to Glenn Roberts out of Retail NI and asked him how he was feeling about tomorrow's budget.
This is, of course, going to be a very, very difficult situation. Of course, people trying to plan, trying to invest. If you're a business and you want to make decisions for the next 12 months, I mean, it seems like there's just been delay because of the huge run-up to this budget.
Oh, absolutely, Tom. And I mean, last year it was me that actually broke the story about the inheritance tax coming on farmers in September. And really what that did, they don't seem to understand business. 20% of your assets are now owned by the taxman, if you like. And when you go to a bank to try and get a cash flow to produce more food and keep that price of food down, well, it's not there. 96% of the farms across the UK actually operate on an overdraft situation, mostly secured by their land. So businesses are now sitting here going, well, what do we do? And for devolved areas especially, they have to run on the same tax on national insurance, on PAYE, on our fuel costs, but lots of the block grant through the Heathrow formula and Barnett consequentials come directly to devolved governments such as Scotland, here in Northern Ireland, and course of cross in Wales. And those governments, the permanent secretaries there, have obviously overran their budget. They're now $500 million the wrong way, and businesses here are very fearful of what is going to happen to them tomorrow and how much borrowing power they have, and is it actually worth their while continuing to keep the doors open.
Doogie Beattie, thanks very much.
Now, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code, which is on your screens now. Today, we're asking, who should Rachel Reeves prioritise in the budget? Pensioners or workers? A very interesting question, Tom.
Yeah, now I'm told that this QR code will appear on the screen at some point.
I was wondering where that is.
But
it will be there.
While we wait for it, what do you make of the question? I mean, who should Rachel Reeves prioritise?
It's a difficult question, I think. Certainly not one I feel qualified to answer. I think perhaps our leaders should be answering it, and maybe we'll get some kind of answer tomorrow.
For me, this is the problem with a zero-growth economy. When you have no growth, you have to make these sort of zero-sum decisions. If someone wants more, you have to take from another group.
Well, it sounds like both groups are getting shafted tomorrow, doesn't it, really?
But here's the thing. If we had a bit of economic growth in this country, there'd be more money and you can have win-win solutions. I mean, that's what it felt like in the late 1980s, in the 1990s and the early 2000s. When this country was growing, more people could get more. You could do tax cuts and spending increases. Chancellors had a good time because it was all about how they're going to dole out the money. Now we've got no growth. Chancellors are having a horrible time with the worst decisions.
Now, I'm being told we're having an issue with the QR code, but we will bring that to you later in the programme. But you can have your say if you go to gbnews.com/your say. That is an opportunity that you have got, and we'll bring you that QR code once we get it.
Absolutely. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more still to come on the show.
Indeed, disability benefit claimants will no longer be able to claim BMWs and Mercedes cars through the taxpayer-subsidised Motability scheme. That's after ministers highlighted the, quote, unfairness to working families. But after the break,
the Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared at Westminster Magistrates Court of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but was found guilty of criminal damage to her mobile phone.
All of that and more to come. You with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So many people within the armed services now can say that they owe their lives if they were, shall we say, working in the Middle East and in Afghanistan, in Iraq before that, actually owe their lives to the fact that it was dogs that they sent out to see whether or not there were explosives in a building, whether they were going through a minefield or whatever. So I think we were just talking previously, of course, Hannibal uses elephants. And there has not been a single year since the end of the Second World War when we have not had a conflict of some sort, and animals are still being used. We don't have horses used in the same way, obviously. We still had the cavalry, which is why 8 million horses were lost. Horses, donkeys and mules were lost in the First World War. But they weren't just the cavalry horses. They were the horses that were pulling the guns, that were delivering the armaments, that were carrying out the wounded. And what is interesting is, today in the 21st century, in Ukraine, who are leading the way in using drones in modern warfare, they are doing what they did in the First World War, and they're using horses, donkeys and mules to take the wounded out. The wonderful memorial that we have on Park Lane, it's there and it recognises that it was horses, dogs, donkeys, mules, and if you look, because they have individual statues of them, but if you actually look at the memorial itself, you will see pigeons, dolphins. I mean, we know that dolphins are being used. As human beings, we share this planet with millions of other animals. And for centuries, we have used certain animals and abused them, used them and abused them, and got them into service with us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. The time is 28 minutes past 12 and some breaking news coming in now.
About 150 firefighters are tackling a fire which has broken out at a warehouse in West London. This after residents reported hearing huge explosions.
Yes, firefighters were called to a two-storey building on Bridge Road in Southall at about 5 to 9 this morning. We'll bring you latest on that as we get it on the show.
Well, much more to come on that, of course. But in other news, Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassing a transgender activist on social media, but found guilty of causing criminal damage after he threw Sophia Brooks's phone outside a conference in London last year.
Yes, the judge said that while Linehan's social media posts were deeply unpleasant, insulting and even unnecessary, that they were not oppressive and therefore did not amount to harassment.
Whilst giving evidence, the Father Ted co-creator claimed his life was made hell by trans activists, accusing Sophia Brooks of being a young soldier in the trans activist army.
Well, for more now, we're joined in the studio by GBNews Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, you were there. What can you tell us?
Well, I spoke to Graeme Linehan just after that verdict was passed, and he was delighted and relieved that this ordeal was over, but quite angry that it had been brought in the first place. And he said, actually, you know, far from being someone who was harassing the trans community, it was quite the opposite with trans activists. Harassing anybody that should be in any way gender critical. So that's the way he sees it. He spoke as he came out of court, and this is what he said.
I am very pleased by today's verdict. The judge found me and the women who gave evidence on my behalf to be credible, honest witnesses and said that my actions were not criminal and did not constitute harassment. The judge commented that the complainant, a well-known trans activist, was not truthful. There are a group of dangerous men who are determined to bully women and girls and to misuse the courts and police in furtherance of a misogynistic agenda.
So as far as Graeme Linehan is concerned, he has been found guilty of this criminal damage in regards to the phone that we were told there was evidence actually about the way in which this trans activist was behaving at the Battle of Ideas conference in London on October the 19th last year. This activist was in and about all the delegates taking photographs of everybody. We heard from one witness, Catherine Harris from LGB Alliance, who said that, in her opinion, this was activity that was designed to intimidate and harass people at that conference. And it was after the conference ended that Graeme Linehan spoke to this trans activist. They got into a row. He swiped that phone from this activist's hands at that point. Although he's been charged with criminal damage, he's not having to pay any damages to this activist because, for some reason, even though they claim their phone was damaged, they've never had it repaired since. So there's no money that he will have to pay on that. He will have to pay some court costs with regard to this. But that substantive charge of harassing this trans activist, he was found not guilty of. It was alleged that between the 11th and the 27th of October last year, he sent multiple messages that the prosecution said were abusive and harassing in nature and, you know, needn't have been sent. And the judge referred to that but said it didn't constitute harassment as far as the judge was concerned in this case.
Now, obviously, this has been going on for quite some time, as you said earlier, Mark. When you spoke to Graeme outside court, did he seem relieved?
Yeah, there's no doubt he is relieved, but I think he's also very angry, as so many people are that have spoken out on issues around gender and believe that when they do so, there is an immediate pile-on by the activist community, the trans activist community, and that's what he said was happening in this particular case, that he was being bombarded with harassing social media messages and was responding in kind. And obviously at the conference itself, this person was behaving in a manner that those giving evidence to court said they believed was designed to be intimidating and harassing of those that were attending that particular conference. So, of course, Graeme Linehan, you'll remember, earlier in the year was arrested when he came off this flight to the US on different charges. But he says this just shows you what those who can, that want to be gender critical, that want to stand up to a perceived idea of what gender is, what they're up against in terms of a very organised activist community that will go after them at every opportunity.
Well, Mark White, thanks indeed for both being there at the court and bringing us the news here in the studio. Thanks indeed.
Well, there's still more to come on Good Afternoon Britain here on GB News. Lots more indeed.
Yes, an East London pub has introduced a child-free rule after 6 o'clock following a slew of complaints. Now we're asking, should all British boozers have a child curfew? All of that and much more, of course, after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. The top stories. Rachel Reeves has insisted she will still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Meanwhile, the Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. Rachel Reeves will today confirm the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. Father Ted creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassment but found guilty of criminal damage to the phone of a trans activist. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander has announced that Heathrow's £33 billion plan for a third runway has been chosen as the plan to expand the airport. Heathrow says the project will be 100% privately financed and no taxpayer money will be used to build the runway. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Tatiana. Still lots to come on today's show. A new study forecasts that between 1 and 3 million UK jobs could disappear by 2035, all thanks to AI. Is your job in the firing line?
Well, all of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A beautiful day out there, crisp but bright, dry and sunny for most of us, albeit with showers for some. Those showers most likely across North Sea coasts as this area of low pressure pulls away. We've got a northerly wind bringing in some showers into eastern England, northern Scotland as well, and 1 or 2 into Pembrokeshire and Cornwall. But these are the exceptions. For the vast majority, especially inland parts of the UK, we're going to see clear blue skies, lighter winds, and as a result, a beautiful day out there, but a chill in the air, temperatures of 7 to 9 Celsius in the south, 5 to 8 further north. And then as we go into the evening, widespread frost starts to form, temperatures dropping away quickly after the sun goes down, particularly across much of Scotland, away from coasts where we're going to see generally frost-free conditions and 1 or 2 showers continuing. Also into the west of Scotland, the far west of Northern Ireland, we will see a thickening of the cloud through the evening as the next system very slowly starts to move in from the west. But under the clear skies elsewhere, overnight it is going to be a chilly night, a widespread frost, temperatures dipping to -4 to -6 Celsius in rural spots, a little bit less cold around coasts and in main urban areas. But nevertheless, the showers tending to ease away to the east. We've got thicker cloud rolling into the west, and that'll lift temperatures by dawn across Northern Ireland, Western and Central Scotland, West Wales and the far southwest. And you can see that cloud creeping its way west to east through the morning. But we keep the sunny skies across the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast until the afternoon. Outbreaks of rain spread into the rest of the country. Light to moderate, but heaviest over northwestern hills. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M74 southbound at Junction 13, a collision is causing restrictions. Drivers should exercise caution. In Leicestershire, the A42 southbound between the M1 and Junction 14 has an accident causing a 15-minute delay. Sandwell District's M5 slip road to the M6 northbound encounters a collision with a 15-minute delay, easing by 1:30 today. Cambridgeshire's A14 eastbound between Junction 25 Bar Hill and Junction 31 M11 has a broken down vehicle affecting flow. Expect short delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 12, which means we're going live to Downing Street, where our political editor, Christopher Hope, has just left an official briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman. Chris, what can you tell us?
Well, Tom, the big news wasn't in the Downing Street briefing, but just moments ago in the House of Commons, Wes Streeting has announced the changes to the sugar tax, how it's applied in the UK. The threshold for the sugar tax on soft drinks will be lowered from 5 grams per 100 millilitres to 4.5 grams. This will be a big deal for those who enjoy their milk-based drinks. It's going to be seen as the milkshake tax. It will mean that milkshakes, which do have a high sugar content, will be taxed. We'll be hearing more of that later. We asked in the briefing just now with the PM spokesman about this increase in the sugar tax, but there was no answer because, of course, it's being announced in the House of Commons. The big news from Downing Street, though, is a phone call this morning between President Zelensky and Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister. There's a phone call of the Coalition of the Willing this afternoon, but in the call between Zelensky and Sir Keir Starmer, they did discuss deploying UK troops after any peace deal is signed with Russia in Ukraine. Now, the spokesman said this: the leaders discussed the international unity that's been shown in support of Ukraine and agreed to prepare for multinational force deployment in the event of any peace deal signed. That means the UK would be helping to support safer seas, that's patrolling the coastline of Ukraine, the skies over Ukraine, as well as regenerating UK's armed forces. Now, asked directly whether that meant British troops deployed on the ground in Ukraine after any peace deal, we were told yes by number 10. Planning has been ongoing since the summer, since President Macron was here, about a multinational force. And so I think we should be preparing ourselves for, if a peace deal is done, for British troops to be deployed on the ground in Ukraine.
Goodness me, that is significant news and weighty news. But on milkshakes, Chris, I have it on good authority that a sachet of sugar that you get at a coffee shop, for instance, contains between 2.5 and 3 grams of sugar. If you were to buy a cup of tea, for instance, I've got one here, and you put in 2 sachets of sugar, 2 teaspoons of sugar, would that then face the milkshake tax?
Well, yes, it could do, Tommy. You could be your own personal one-man budget, I suppose, in that sense. But, I mean, what the government is saying to us is that they think this strikes the appropriate balance, they're saying, between supporting health objectives and creating conditions for the soft drink industry to keep growing and investing. There have been speculation this figure, this grams per 100 millilitres, this measure, could be reduced to 4 grams, but 4.5 grams they think works. The reason behind this, they say, is this: it remains committed to addressing the obesity epidemic and wants to prioritise a system of prevention. What happens here when the government moves with and it came in under a Tory government under George Osborne, which I think he has said before is one of the proudest things he did as Chancellor. It does force big companies
proudest things he did was make Lucozade
how they
disgusting.
create these drinks.
Chris, it seems more of a job for the health department, though, surely, not the Treasury. And how much money would that actually make? Fair enough if it's going to help tackle the obesity crisis, but that's something for Wes Streeting, no? Not Rachel Reeves.
Well, yes, I mean, that's right. That's what it was announced in the House of Commons by Wes Streeting, as Sophie. Is of course a tax measure. It was brought in 2018, but announced by George Osborne when he was the Chancellor, and they do think it has changed the way that drinks are calibrated. These changes will come in on the 1st of January 2028, so that is a long way away. That's over 2 years away. The reason why that allows the industry to recalibrate how they make fizzy drinks.
Yeah. And I should say I was probably being unfair there to one particular brand I mentioned, because lots of drinks have become disgusting since 2016.
Absolutely.
When the government tried to force out all of the nice tasting sugar from the drinks. Chris, you've been busy in Parliament this week.
Speaking of proudest moments, Chris.
Absolutely. I mean, well, maybe not your proudest moment now, because you have lost your title as the once reigning darts champion of Westminster. What's going on here?
Thank you, Tom. I didn't know you were going to ask me that. That's very kind of you to not tell me that. No, yes, you're absolutely right. Last night I was in Westminster. I was taking part in the Westminster Darts Championship. I won it last year by surprisingly throwing a triple 20, and I did it with throwing with Luke Littler and another famous darts player, and I didn't win last night.
Well, Christopher Hope, thanks very much. We're going to go live to Westminster now, where the Prime Minister's on his feet talking about Ukraine.
Serious leadership that is needed to advance a just and lasting peace for Ukraine and indeed for the whole of Europe. Mr. Speaker, let me now turn to my broader discussions at the G20. I took the opportunity in South Africa to raise the ongoing and utterly horrifying situation in Sudan. We are working with our partners to break the restrictions on humanitarian aid and demand accountability. We must rally global pressure to stop the slaughter, achieve a sustained ceasefire, and ultimately to deliver a transition to civilian rule. Mr. Speaker, in South Africa, I also chaired the Global Fund replenishment alongside President Ramaphosa, leading the charge in the global fight against AIDS, TB, and malaria. Work that has already saved over 70 million lives. Yet, Mr. Speaker, malaria still kills a child under the age of 5 nearly every minute. 4,000 adolescent girls and young women still contract HIV every week. And TB remains the world's single deadliest infectious disease, even though we've had a cure for nearly a century. So we will keep driving this project forward because it's the right thing to do and because it helps protect the United Kingdom from future pandemics and health emergencies. Mr. Speaker, a central priority at the G20 was delivering economic security and opportunity, as it is at every international meeting I attend. A strong economy allows us to be strong in the world. Economic security is national security. So, Mr. Speaker, I can tell the House we delivered for the British people this weekend, including deals with South Africa for British firms to upgrade their railways and submarines, a £370 million deal for Rolls-Royce to supply jet engines to Algeria, and a £4 billion deal with Indonesia for new ships, delivering 1,000 jobs in Rosyth, Plymouth and Bristol, and delivering, if I may say, another rebuke to all the people who prematurely wrote off British shipbuilding. Mr. Speaker, we can only achieve these things, we can only deliver for the British people by working with our partners. And I think this is a moment to raise our sights. Mr. Speaker, the House will recall that it was when the global financial crisis struck that the G20 showed its full potential when my predecessor, Gordon Brown, marshalled a global response to that crisis to protect the savings and finances of the British people. And so, in this moment of growing fragility and crisis around the world, it is time once again to take a more purposeful, unified approach, focused on global growth and stability. I called for a response based on the right balance of investment and fiscal discipline, open markets, reforming the global trading system, and tackling the cost of living crisis. That approach was echoed by the leaders' declaration from Johannesburg. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm also pleased to say that the summit confirmed that the UK will take on the presidency of the G20 in 2027, the first time it's returned to the UK since 2009. It will be a proud moment for our country, part of our work to restore Britain's international leadership, which was neglected for so long. And we will use that presidency to drive the agenda that I've been talking about today, to drive growth and opportunity, to create jobs, cut the cost of living, and fundamentally strengthen the economic security of the British people. That is what we're doing at home and abroad, and I commend this statement to the House.
Can we bear not the Leader of the Opposition?
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement? We are proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, and our support remains unwavering. Ukraine is battling the most flagrant breach of territorial integrity in Europe in recent times. We must never forget that this war was started by Putin, who is trying to extinguish a democracy on our own continent. It is important that we stand together to defend the principle that aggressors should not succeed. The previous Conservative government led Europe in support for Ukraine. We were the first country to provide modern Western main battle tanks and to gift munitions and Storm Shadow missiles. We led the way on sanctions and trained tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers on UK soil. It is now incumbent on this government to leverage British influence at this crucial time for the West. Putin's relentless bombardment of Kyiv and KGB-style negotiating tactics show he is not serious about peace, which is why Russia must not be welcomed back into the international fold without a comprehensive peace agreement. So will the Prime Minister rule out support for readmitting Russia to the G7? We all want this terrible war to end. And as the Prime Minister rightly said, elements of that draft 28-point plan were unacceptable. Conservatives are clear that the blanket surrender of Ukrainian territory would mean rewarding Putin's unprovoked aggression. What is the government's position on reports that Ukraine's territorial integrity is on the table? Because if Putin is seen to emerge stronger from these negotiations, all our potential adversaries will be emboldened. Be in no doubt, Mr. Speaker, the axis of authoritarian states is collaborating to destabilize the West, aided by China, with Iran providing weapons and North Korea providing troops for Putin. It is precisely for these reasons that the government must continue to work extremely closely with the US and to understand their objectives. Parties like the Lib Dems and the Greens, who are encouraging us to decouple from the US, are putting their anti-American prejudice above national security. But, Mr. Speaker, given that in the last fortnight, the Royal Navy has intercepted 2 Russian ships in our waters, and with Russian spy ships pointing lasers at RAF pilots, it is a disgrace that Reform are still blaming NATO for Russia's aggression. Although perhaps it should come as no surprise when their former leader in Wales was sent to prison last week for taking bribes from Putin. Earlier this year, Mr. Speaker, many countries came together to form the Coalition of the Willing, pledging to strengthen support for Ukraine. Can the Prime Minister update us on the planning and readiness of the Coalition of the Willing? What is its scope and terms of mission? And what can the Prime Minister tell us about a counter-proposal that is reportedly being submitted by the EU? Mr. Speaker, to stand with Ukraine, we need to know we can also stand on our own 2 feet. Last week, the Commons Defence Select Committee warned that Britain is unprepared for a major attack and the government is making glacial progress towards conflict readiness. So it is concerning that reports indicate the MOD faces a potential budget cut this financial year of £2.6 billion. Can the Prime Minister confirm whether this is true or false? Meanwhile, the EU is reportedly demanding nearly €7 billion for the UK to buy into its defence fund. Conservatives warned that this would happen. At the time the UK-EU reset deal was being negotiated, the Shadow Defence Secretary said that Labour had given away 12 years of British fishing rights in exchange for nothing. He was right. Will the Prime Minister rule out paying the EU for access to SAFE? Mr. Speaker, it is extremely disappointing that Europe is still buying Russian oil and gas. Moscow should be denied safe harbours for its tankers and profits, and Europe should ban Russian oil and gas sooner than its current 2027 deadline. I believe the Prime Minister agrees with that sentiment, so what pressure will he put on European countries to stop them buying Russian oil and gas? Mr. Speaker, the UK's genuinely world-leading support has made a material difference to Ukraine's ability to fight back against Russia's illegal invasion. Support that I will remind the Prime Minister began under the Conservatives. Let's not forget that in 2022, Russia thought it could capture Kyiv and subjugate Ukraine within days. So let's wake up and face that threat from Russia. So finally, can the Prime Minister reassure the House that we will be boosting our own defence capabilities as well as using our influence to ensure that secure future for Ukraine?
Minister. Well, can I start by thanking her for her support on Ukraine? I think it is really important that we stay united in this House. And can I readily acknowledge the role of the previous government in leading on Ukraine and, in fact, in bringing the whole House together on this issue, which it did for a number of years and allowed us a platform on which to build the support that we are now putting in place. In relation to membership of the G7, G8, look, the focus at the moment is on a ceasefire, so anything along those lines is a long way off. But, you know, we have to remember that Putin is the aggressor here. He is the one who started this war. On territorial integrity, the sovereignty of Ukraine is paramount, and that's why any questions about the future of Ukraine must be determined by Ukraine, and that is why I've been speaking frequently to both President Trump and President Zelensky. President Zelensky probably 5 or 6 times in the last 2 or 3 days on a whole range of issues. Can I join her in her comments about reform, because it is shocking that a senior official, the leader in Wales, has been jailed for over 10 years, a very significant sentence, for pro-Russia bribes.
But he never met him.
That is extraordinary. And that is why I say, and I say again, there should be, that the reform leadership should have the courage to launch an investigation. How on earth did that happen in their party? And what other links are there? But today, and this statement and the question across the House will reinforce once again that reform with their pro-Putin approach would have absolutely no role in bringing allies together on important issues across the globe. Mr. Speaker, she asks about the Coalition of the Willing. 9 months ago, President Macron and I brought the Coalition of the Willing together. There are now 36 like-minded countries that meet and discuss frequently and align our positions and our support. That is a considerable achievement, and we have plans in relation to security guarantees, in relation to air, sea and land. Mr. Speaker, on the text of the agreement that's being worked on in Geneva, there was an intensive discussion about this, as she would have expected at the G20, involving a number of key allies, both the E3 plus key Coalition of Willing allies, and the strong consensus was that we should work with the text that's in existence, unacceptable though some parts of it are, because other parts are essential, rather than a different text, and that is the process that's going on in Geneva, and I think that's the right approach. On defence spending, I've made my position clear, and it goes with the strategic review of defence as well as to how we take that forward. The safe negotiations are going on with the EU in the usual way, and one of the commitments I made in relation to our reset with the EU was that we would do it by quiet diplomacy rather than shouting from megaphones across the channel. On oil and gas, she asks, and this is really important, we are taking every opportunity to have extensive discussions to take Russian oil and gas off the market. This has to be done across Europe. It has to be done beyond Europe. There are discussions I've had beyond Europe on this issue. It is vital that we press ahead, and we are doing so and taking every opportunity. But can I return to where I started? I do genuinely think it's important in this House that we're united on Ukraine. The only winner, if we divide on party political grounds, will be Putin. And I again recognise the work and the lead that the previous government took, which I was proud to support in opposition. I'm proud to take that forward as Prime Minister. I'm grateful for the support that we're getting from the opposition.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Emily Thornbury.
Mr. Speaker, can I begin by complimenting the Prime Minister on his work on the international stage?
Well, there we have it. The Prime Minister speaking in the House of Commons following the G20 summit and also referencing Ukraine as well. Of course, big goings-on in that department with the President of the United States' purported peace plan.
Indeed. A few digs at the Reform Party in there as well, as Richard Tice did not look particularly happy throughout those exchanges in the House there at all.
It is interesting, though, isn't it, that this Prime Minister has seemed to travel abroad quite so much. I mean, yes, the G20 is a relatively important forum, but it's worth noting Donald Trump didn't go to the G20 this year. It's worth noting that this Prime Minister has travelled abroad more than any other Prime Minister for this point in the Parliament. I mean, I think I'm right in saying he's travelled almost the distance to the moon, if you add up all the air miles.
Very good fact. Well, I think a lot of people would, if that is indeed the case, feel perhaps that shouldn't be the case, because look at the situation we're in currently here in Britain, the country, or the countries he's the Prime Minister of.
Well,
so,
maybe that's why he wants to get away quite so much.
Well, maybe that's it.
It was a famous joke that whenever Boris Johnson was in a bit of political trouble, he'd organise a trip to Ukraine. Yeah. He's much more popular on the streets of Kiev than Kensington.
Indeed.
But I'm not sure. Do you think that Keir Starmer sort of carries weight around the world? I mean, is there anywhere that sort of renames streets after Keir Starmer? Not sure.
Maybe they will. Maybe that street in Northern Ireland will change from Prince Andrew. Indeed. Well, we'll have more on that, indeed, on Good Afternoon Britain here on GB News. Lots more to come on today's show, so don't go anywhere. Make sure you stay with us here on GB News.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 26th of November. I'm Sophie Reaper.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
The Chancellor brands her critics misogynists and urges Labour MPs to unite behind her budget. Just over 24 hours to go now. Will it be the nightmare before Christmas?
Each of us must do our bit for the security of our country and the brightness of its future.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, says he has full confidence in Rachel Reeves and wants to keep going on and on and on as Chancellor as we wait for what's happening in the budget tomorrow. Which taxes go up and where will the spending cuts be made?
Businesses right across the UK are holding their breath in anticipation of this budget, but devolved areas have already overspent last year's here in Northern Ireland by 400 million.
Now, Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared at Westminster Magistrates Court of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but was found guilty of criminal damage to her mobile phone.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had.
BBC Chairman Samir Shah apologises to licence fee payers over Trump documentary chaos, and it reveals that BBC News had internally argued the Trump edit was justified.
Elsewhere, about 150 firefighters are tackling a fire which has broken out at a warehouse in West London after residents reported hearing huge explosions.
And disability benefit claimants will no longer be able to claim BMWs and Mercedes through the taxpayer-subsidised Motability scheme after ministers highlighted the unfairness to working families.
And councillors in Northern Ireland have voted to change the name of a road called Prince Andrew Way. But what will the council change the name to? Good afternoon, Britain. Some breaking news just coming into us now. Some American news outlets are reporting that Ukraine has agreed to American proposals for peace. This is not yet confirmed by GBNews, but just to say, some American outlets are saying that Ukraine has signed up to a form of Donald Trump's peace plan for Ukraine. Now, this is, of course, a breaking story, and it will be quite shocking, given the hard words against the president's peace plan that we heard from so many quarters over the last week or so. This is really quite shocking news.
Indeed, and yesterday, of course, sources from America were saying they just needed more time. They wouldn't put an exact date or time on it, would they, Tom? They were saying they just needed more time to get it over the line. So maybe they were just underestimating themselves, and we may have an agreed deal. But of course, we'll bring you all the latest on that breaking story here on GB News. Send us your views, your comments. You can do that by visiting gbnews.com/your say. All that and more, though. But first, your news headlines with the lovely Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Ukraine has reportedly agreed to the peace proposal brokered by the Donald Trump administration, with some minor details still to be worked out. That is according to US media this afternoon. It comes after reports that US and Russian officials, including US Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll, were meeting for talks in Abu Dhabi today. Well, that's as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he also had a very good and very productive conversation with Sir Keir Starmer today. It comes as Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under attack overnight, with officials saying at least 6 people were killed. Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched 22 missiles and 460 drones to attack Ukraine. Ukraine reportedly also carried out strikes on Russia, where officials said 3 people were killed. Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to visit the US at the earliest possible date in November, according to Ukraine's national security chief. Rustem Umerov says the visit will be aimed at completing the final stages of the peace deal that we have just heard. Reportedly, Ukraine has agreed to a peace proposal brokered by the Donald Trump administration.
The focus at the moment is on a ceasefire, so anything along those lines is a long way off. But, you know, we have to remember that Putin is the aggressor here. He is the one who started this war. On territorial integrity, the sovereignty of Ukraine is paramount, and that's why any questions about the future of Ukraine must be determined by Ukraine. And that is why I've been speaking frequently to both President Trump and President Zelensky. President Zelensky probably 5 or 6 times in the last 2 or 3 days on a whole range of issues.
Father Ted creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassment but found guilty of criminal damage to the phone of a trans activist. Mr Linehan deliberately whacked Sophia Brooks's phone out of her hand and threw it on a road outside a conference last October. His trial was told in September. Westminster Magistrates Court also heard that the Irish comedy writer relentlessly posted abusive comments about Sophia Brooks on social media. Today, the judge said Mr Linehan's social media post did not amount to harassment, but that he was guilty of criminal damage in relation to the phone. He denied both charges. Mr Linehan spoke outside court this morning.
I am very pleased by today's verdict. The judge found me and the women who gave evidence on my behalf to be credible, honest witnesses, and said that my actions were not criminal and did not constitute harassment. The judge commented that the complainant, a well-known trans activist, was not truthful. There are a group of dangerous men who are determined to bully women and girls and to misuse the courts and police in furtherance of a misogynistic agenda. I'm proud to have stood up to them, and I will continue to do so. I'm grateful to the Free Speech Union for their unwavering support and for helping to ensure that those who speak out against these dangerous activists are protected.
Rachel Reeves has insisted she'll still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Ms Reeves pledged that she wouldn't let her critics beat her and said Labour needs to show voters it deserves a second term in power, but would only be able to do so if MPs stick together. She said that leaks in the run-up to the budget had been incredibly destabilising. That's after concerns were raised about tomorrow's budget, which is expected to raise £30 billion worth of tax. Addressing the Parliamentary Labour Party last night, Ms Reeves argued the budget should be regarded as a package and not a pick and mix where MPs like the cola bottles but not the fruit salad. Shadow Levelling Up Secretary James Cleverly spoke to GB News.
I don't think it's legitimate to criticise person for basically their chromosomes. So I'm critical of her because she was completely dishonest in the lead up to the general election about their tax plans, that she has ramped up taxes, she is killing jobs, this constant briefing, U-turning, rebriefing, re-U-turning is crushing confidence in the British economy just at the time when we need it to be most active. These are the things she should be criticised for, not because she's a woman.
Meanwhile, the Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. Rachel Reeves will confirm today the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. She'll announce that 250 new health one-stop shops will bring the right local combination from GPs, nurses and pharmacists together under one roof to best meet the needs of the community, starting in the most deprived areas. Health Minister Karen Smith says morale is low in the NHS.
We said in our 10-year plan that we wanted to move care out of hospital into communities where people actually live and stop people being bounced around the system. Many people will have experienced this. You've got maybe a couple of conditions, maybe diabetes and maybe heart problems, and you repeat your story, you're on different lists for different tests and so on, and many travelling into hospitals. We want to stop all that. We want to build services around people and the conditions we know they have, particularly older people and some of the conditions that arise, not for everybody, but as a result of being older, more frail, people who are more frail. So bringing all of that into your local neighbourhood and crucially having decent buildings in order to provide those services.
And about 150 firefighters are tackling a fire which has broken out at a warehouse in West London after residents reported hearing huge explosions. Firefighters were called to a two-storey building on Bridge Road in Southall around 8:55 this morning. The LFB says a warehouse and retail space has been affected and it sent 25 fire engines to the scene, including from Southall, Heston and Ealing. Residents in the area are being advised by the LFB to keep their doors and windows closed due to the large amount of smoke being produced by the incident. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3138 and €1.1387. The price of gold is £3,145 and 43 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,534 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Some breaking news that could be of huge import. Yes, a US official told the CBS news agency that the Ukraine's government had agreed to a peace deal brokered by the Trump administration to stop Russia's nearly 4-year assault.
Yes, the American official and Ukraine's national security advisor, Rustem Umerov, said a common understanding on a proposal had been reached with details yet to be worked out. Now, this is a breaking, developing story. We don't have a lot of information on this yet, do we, Tom?
We don't, but it is being reported that there could be a Volodymyr Zelensky trip to the White House by the end of the month, which is also coincidentally by the end of the week.
Yes.
We could really be in a world now where we have a deal agreed this week to end this 4 years long war. This war that has had such an impact on not just Ukraine, but actually, frankly, the world, our energy prices, our cost of living.
Absolutely.
Could it be that this war could end this week?
Well, CBS are reporting that a US official told them the Ukrainians have agreed to the peace deal. There are some minor details to be sorted out, but they have agreed to a peace deal, which is absolutely huge, of course, as you rightly say. Now, they also say there has been no immediate reaction from Russia, the invading force, that was agreed to in Abu Dhabi. So details coming in that we're trying to piece together as they come in. I think
it's worth saying that this is a briefing from a US official.
Yes.
And we haven't heard any briefing from the Ukrainians. Now, could this be the Americans over-egging what's happened? I mean, CBS is a very credible news agency. I would be surprised if they were over-egging it. But it could be that the White House is trying to bounce Ukraine into this deal.
Absolutely. Well, I think we can go now to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, who joins us in the studio. Mark, big breaking story, developing lines. What more can you tell us?
Well, potentially, yes. I don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves because at the moment it's just one source speaking to one US network. And as you say, it's very possible that there's an over-enthusiastic official putting information out there into the public realm that might add a little bit of pressure onto Ukraine. For me, what I want to know, if this is something that Ukraine has agreed to, is this the 28-point plan that many people viewed with real surprise and were aghast at just a few days ago because of everything that Ukraine was being asked to give up?
It was basically the maximalist Russia position. Ukraine halving the size of its army, giving up huge swathes of land, agreeing to never join NATO. I mean, just ceding sovereignty in many ways as a country.
Yeah, and many people are suspicious that actually, you know, this was a 28-point plan drawn up by Russia and, you know, amended very little thereafter. So is it that? If it's that, I have to say I would be very surprised, and that is very significant. And if it is that, then the chances, obviously, of Russia agreeing to continue on with this process are heightened. If it is the amendment to the proposals as hatched out when the European Union got involved just in the last couple of days, then you can see why they would actually be potentially quite enthusiastic about agreeing to that. But then we have the position of it having to be put to the Russians again, and the Russians in this maximalist proposal, as you say, having put forward their wish list there, will they be willing to compromise here? So that's why I'm saying we shouldn't really get ahead of ourselves until we understand what it is they are agreeing to, whether it's that original 28-point plan or the amended plan.
And I suppose, I mean, we did see this with the Hamas-Israel war. There'd be one side that agreed to one agreement and another side that agreed to another agreement. If this agreement has changed significantly over the course of the last few days and the Ukrainians agree to this new agreement, I mean, it could be that the Russians agree to one agreement, the Ukrainians agree to another agreement, and therefore there is no agreement.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right here. And this is always the tricky situation when it comes to these big international negotiations, when you're bringing together two sides who are so diametrically opposed in terms of the goals they want to achieve. So the trick at the end of the day, if you can manage it, is to get both sides to agree to compromise, where no side gets everything they want, but both sides can live with the deal that is put forward. So that, it wouldn't surprise me that Ukraine would agree to the proposals that are amended, that they have gone through with the European Union members, the coalition of the willing, including, of course, the UK, France and Germany just in recent days. But what happens there on in? Do the Russians come back with a counter-proposal? That's where we get into the interesting area.
Absolutely.
As I say, if it is that original 28-point plan, I would be very surprised, given that there has already been these amendments put forward now to the Trump administration from Europe and others.
OK, Mark White, thank you very much indeed for bringing us that. Let's get more on this now with Christopher Hope, live from Downing Street. Of course, the Prime Minister has been speaking about Ukraine, just not in the terms of an imminent deal.
Well, that's right. That's right, Tom and Sophie. All ears on what the PM says now in the House of Commons. He's answering a question there about the G20, about the COP climate summit, and also about Ukraine. And we'll be hearing quite closely about whether he makes any reference to the reports we're seeing across a number of outlets now, ABC and CBS, both reporting that a deal has been agreed in some form of outline. Again, we await confirmation. Number 10 behind me, I've been talking to officials there in the last few moments that they are not commenting yet. We do know that Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer spoke with Volodymyr Zelensky, of course, Ukraine's president, this morning. Now, the readout we got from Number 10 was very interesting because it talked about the possibility of UK troops being deployed on the ground in Ukraine after any peace deal. Because this afternoon, mid-afternoon today, the Coalition of the Willing, that's European powers, are meeting virtually, convened by Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron, the French president. They said this, that the leaders will be discussing international unity that's shown in support of Ukraine and underline the importance of continued work by coalition partners in preparation for the deployment of multinational forces following the cessation of hostilities. And what that means is the UK, after any peace deal signed, will be supporting Ukraine in terms of its air support, keeping the peace in the skies above Ukraine, sea support, and crucially, British troops being deployed on the ground in Ukraine. That was a direct answer from Number 10 today. We asked them, will we see British troops on the ground enforcing any peace deal? The answer to that was clearly yes, and they said that planning has been ongoing since the summer when, of course, Emmanuel Macron came here on the state visit, the leader of France. They also said the UK has committed so far £4.5 billion this year to Ukraine, 21 billion in all since 2022. Of course, money is tight, but the UK government justifies that because, of course, the issue with dealing with Russia and trying to controlling the expansionist nature of that country under President Putin. So as things stand, no comment from Number 10. We're pushing hard for it, and of course, in the House of Commons chamber, the PM on his feet now, and could be asked at any point about this by MPs.
Chris, what's really interesting, of course, you talk about the money for defence there. We've got a really rather huge day for the economy tomorrow, the budget. Of course, that's all decided. We know it's been decided for a couple of weeks now. But is there any chance that if there were to be a peace deal brokered today, that could massively change the defence budget? I'm not sure. You'll know better than me.
It's a great question, Sophie, and we did ask that question in the lobby. I mean, if money's so tight, how can we afford $4.5 billion for Ukraine this year, $22 billion since 2022? And the government says, well, you know, their security is our security. The justification has always been from the Prime Minister that any issue which happens in Europe washes up on our shores, and then that's why we need to control the expansionist nature of Russia at the moment. But there will be question marks, is if we start deploying troops on the ground in Ukraine, where will that money come from? Will there be further cuts required? Will we have to find more money for the defence budget? Lots of questions. If things are happening as quickly as they seem to be in America, again, no confirmation from the UK government. If that's the case, it will change this debate very rapidly, in fact, through and after the budget.
This is, of course, a hugely significant moment. We know how battered our finances have been by this war in Ukraine. I mean, we only need to look at our energy bills. I mean, some of the inflation that we've seen is a consequence of this war as well. If truly a peace agreement could be reached this very week, I mean, that would be a significant diuretic for the Chancellor. I mean, it could put this country in a slightly better fiscal position too.
That's right, because there's no end in sight of the fighting at the moment. The two sides are a long way apart, or so we thought until these reports broke moments ago in America. It will be a great reassurance to the UK government. We're going to now see how a peace deal can be enforced. It will involve UK troops on the ground in Ukraine. That's a big decision to be made by this government. They've got to justify that to our viewers and listeners at GB News. But a real relief for us all. We all care a lot about Ukraine and the way that country's been treated by Russia, and a big moment if that peace deal is agreed. What is the price of it, though? Russia back in the G8, we know that is one of the demands which almost certainly will be acceded to. But how much land will be surrendered to Russia, and will that be seen as rewarding aggression? Those are the questions we'll be facing in coming hours.
Well, Christopher Hope, thanks indeed. Live from Downing Street there on this breaking news that American news agencies are reporting a Ukraine peace deal has potentially been accepted by Ukraine.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more on that story and indeed plenty more on today's show.
Well, the Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared at Westminster Magistrates Court of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but was found guilty of criminal damage to her mobile phone. But after the break...
The Chancellor brands her critics misogynists and urges Labour MPs to unite behind her budget. Just over 24 hours to go. Will it be the nightmare before Christmas?
Each of us must do our bit for the security of our country and the brightness of its future.
Well, all of that and indeed more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's economy is at a crossroads.
And this budget day, every decision counts.
From taxes and rent to the cost of living.
Whatever the outcome, the GB News family will be there.
With expert analysis, breaking down what it means for you.
Budget day all day tomorrow.
Only here on the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 25 minutes past 1. Now, the Chancellor has accused her critics of misogyny and called on nervous Labour MPs to unite behind her ahead of tomorrow's budget.
Yes, also in her defiant message, she insisted she'll be the Chancellor in 2 years' time as businesses across the country brace themselves for tax rises.
Well, one of the measures being touted is a slash to the tax-free ISA allowance, which would mean Brits would be forced to start investing in the stock market instead of leaving their cash as cash.
Well, we can speak now to the Labour MP for Bolsover, Natalie Fleet. Natalie, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I nearly said this morning then. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We should talk first then about we shouldn't be at these cash ISAs. How are your constituents and people all over the UK going to feel about the fact that they may no longer be able to save in what they feel is quite a safe way and instead have to perhaps invest in something a little bit more risky?
So it's not something that has been raised with me at all because I don't know what's going to be in the budget tomorrow. I don't know that Rachel is absolutely going to do that. When it comes to lobbying me about the budget, people aren't saying, can I, all this money I've got to save, can I put it here? Or instead, are you going to make me really inconveniently put it here? Instead, they're saying, Duck, we know you've got no money. We are really feeling it here. How are you going to be any different to the others? That's what they were saying before the election. And I said, you know, that bit of money that we've got, we're going to spend it in line with Labour values. And I think that's what we're going to see tomorrow. Rachel has said, thank God, that she's going to help even more with the cost of living. You've seen the stuff we've already done, the breakfast clubs, the increase in minimum wage. She's going to do more around that. She's going to sort the NHS, which, thank God, I mean, we've already had 5 million more appointments, but we need even more. And then the third thing that she's going to do is stop us paying £1 in every 10 on debt. No household would ever think that was OK. We need taxpayers' money being spent on our NHS and our kids' schools, not on repaying debt. I'm looking forward to what she does actually announce tomorrow.
It does seem extraordinary because you're so genuinely concerned about the cost of living situation in this country. And yet the Office for Budget Responsibility, venerated by the Chancellor, of course, said in terms at the last budget that her decisions increased inflation in this country. The national insurance rise increased inflation in this country. In some ways, the national minimum wage increased inflation in this country. And the extra £20 billion of borrowing, thanks to the debt change rule, increased inflation in this country. We now have the highest inflation in the G7, and that is a pernicious tax on everyone in this country.
Oh, Tom, I do love you, but what does pernicious mean? I assume it means not very good. So in terms of people that care in Bolsover, I mean, there was a lot of people talking about inflation. They were talking about 12% under the Tories when we were all struggling. We haven't got anything like that anymore.
Food price inflation is 5.5%. I mean, it's
exactly.
Really,
so
really
if you
stark.
want to talk to me about the cost of food, if you want to talk to me that I went to Iceland the other day and I could buy a bottle of tomato sauce for £5, I could buy 2 and get 1 free. So 3 bottles of sauce for £10. There's not many people in my community that can afford to do that. We have to tackle inflation. We have to sort the cost of living.
But I'm saying the last budget made it worse.
That's absolutely what she's doing. So the things that she did in the last budget were really incredible. I am so happy that we got the free breakfast clubs. There were a couple that I spoke to the other day that said they could afford to have an extra child because of the measures in the last budget, because they're getting the free breakfast clubs and 30 hours childcare. Rachel is a Chancellor of the Labour Party. For working people in my constituency will be better off as a result of whatever decisions she makes. I absolutely trust her to deliver for us tomorrow.
But you mentioned the previous budget and the decisions that were made. Of course, we don't know exactly what's going to be happening tomorrow. There's only speculation. But previously, she promised in manifestos that, unlike the previous government, she wouldn't pick the pockets of working people. She wouldn't freeze income tax. And yet it's looking incredibly likely that that will be happening tomorrow, dragging 9 million extra people into paying more tax. What do you make of that?
You're right, we don't know what's coming up, but I trust Rachel when she says that the most important thing to her is protecting working people. I want to see them better off. We've already had wage increases. She's absolutely making sure the economy is stable, and by the end of this Parliament, working people in my constituency and across the country will look back and say, can I afford luxuries like takeaway? Can I work and take my kids away? These are things that she will be judged on, not this forecast here or this bit of headroom there. it or what the OBR says, whatever they are and wherever we care. Rachel cares. Rachel is going to make sure that people in my community feel better off by the end of Parliament and after this budget, and that's what I absolutely celebrate.
It seems strange that you're dismissing the OBR now when, for the general election campaign, Rachel Reeves was going around the City of London promising all the financiers that she was going to be the Iron Chancellor, that she was going to care about the bond markets, that she was going to make sure that the country was paying attention to this sort of stuff. And now here you are dismissing the forecasts of the OBR. I mean, pick a lane.
So I have always had my lane and I will always stay in it. I am a constituency MP. Rachel, absolutely Iron Chancellor. Love her so much. She cares about the bonds. She knows what they are. She cares about the OBR and she'd know who they were if she walked past them in the street. I am here to represent my community. They are never going to put me in the Treasury. It's never going to be a thing. I am always going to talk to my community about the things that they care about whether they feel better off. We've seen, so I was looking at the statistics that said that living standards have improved already. The average household income has gone up by £800. I want my community to start feeling that. I want to see them in the pub more. I want to see them not picking up stuff off the supermarket shelf and putting it back. Rachel sorts all the fiscal stuff and these wonderful fiscal events. I am here to make sure that my community feel better off as a result.
Natalie, I know you weren't on. I know you were on the government's side during the rebellion just before the summer that piled more borrowing onto this country. It was reported some of your colleagues were sort of saying, "What's a few billion here?" It was reported last week that there was a special advisor in this government who didn't know what gilt yields are. Now, it's not expected that everyone in the country should know this stuff, but surely members of Parliament and government advisors, politically appointed, do you think some of your colleagues just don't get it when it comes to these things like bond markets and gilt yields and the amount of debt this country has?
I think that my colleagues have fought for a long time to be here, and now we are all here and we've got a Labour government and a Labour budget. They feel responsibility on their shoulders, just like I do. So in terms of welfare, the thing that I really hope that we get to see tomorrow is that every time I go and do a school visit, a third of those kids are living in poverty and they've got 2 working parents, and we've got a benefit cap that means that they might have had 3 children and then fallen on hard times. They can't get any money, any universal credit top up for that 3rd child. I hope that we see the 2-child benefit limit scrapped. I hope that things get better in our communities, and I'm sure that that's what Rachel's going to do for us tomorrow.
Well, as the old adage goes, Natalie, only time will tell. We'll see tomorrow whether or not people will be looking back at this budget with fondness in their hearts or the opposite. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Now, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll. It's a controversial one.
There it is. It's here. We've got it.
Absolutely. Do scan this QR code if you want to take part in this poll, asking who should Rachel Reeves prioritise in the budget, pensioners or workers?
Indeed. So you can scan the QR code that has now appeared on your screens, or you can visit gbnews.com/have-your-say. It'll be an interesting one, won't it, Tom?
I hear that it's actually fairly divided
right now. A very close one, isn't it? But I think it will be, because I think pensioners are going to vote pensioners. I think workers will vote workers. So
are people really that self-interested in this country that they can't see the bigger picture and think of others? Are people always thinking about themselves?
That's quite a Christmassy spirit, Tom. But no, I think people will vote for themselves. We'll be talking about that and so much more on Good Afternoon Britain here on GB News. Lots more to come.
Yes, disability benefit claimants will no longer be able to claim BMWs and Mercedes cars through this taxpayer-subsidised Motability scheme. Extraordinary that it existed in the first place. Well, all of that and much more after your latest news headlines.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. US media says Ukraine has agreed to the peace proposal brokered by the Trump administration, with some minor details still to be worked out. It comes as Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under attack overnight, with officials saying at least 6 people have been killed. Rachel Reeves has insisted she will still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Meanwhile, the Chancellor will double down today on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. Rachel Reeves will confirm the investment for hundreds of new neighbourhood health centres to deliver healthcare directly to people's doorsteps across the country. Father Ted creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassment but found guilty of criminal damage to the phone of a trans activist. And news just breaking, a 39-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the massive illegal waste dump in Oxfordshire. The Environment Agency declared the 40-foot-high mountain of waste a critical incident last week. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you for that update, Tatiana. Lots more to come up on today's show.
Yes, the Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared at Westminster Magistrates Court of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but was found guilty of criminal damage to her mobile phone.
All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A beautiful day out there, crisp but bright, dry and sunny for most of us, albeit with showers for some. Those showers most likely across North Sea coasts as this area of low pressure pulls away. We've got a northerly wind bringing in some showers into eastern England, northern Scotland as well, and one or two into Pembrokeshire and Cornwall. But these are the exceptions. For the vast majority, especially inland parts of the UK, we're going to see clear blue skies, lighter winds, and as a result, a beautiful day out there, but a chill in the air, temperatures of 7 to 9 Celsius in the south, 5 to 8 further north. And then as we go into the evening, widespread frost starts to form, temperatures dropping away quickly after the sun goes down, particularly across much of Scotland, away from coasts where we're going to see generally frost-free conditions and one or two showers continuing. Also into the west of Scotland, the far west of Northern Ireland, we will see a thickening of the cloud through the evening as the next system very slowly starts to move in from the west. But under the clear skies elsewhere, overnight it is going to be a chilly night. A widespread frost, temperatures dipping to -4 to -6 Celsius. In rural spots, a little bit less cold around coasts and in main urban areas. But nevertheless, the showers tending to ease away to the east. We've got thicker cloud rolling into the west, and that'll lift temperatures by dawn across Northern Ireland, western and central Scotland, West Wales and the far southwest. And you can see that cloud creeping its way west to east through the morning. But we keep the sunny skies across the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast until the afternoon. Outbreaks of rain spread into the rest of the country. Light to moderate, but heaviest over northwestern hills. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M74 at Junction 13 southbound is restricted due to a collision. Drive cautiously. In Leicestershire, the A42 southbound between the M1 and Junction 14 is affected by an accident, causing delays. A collision on the M5 slip road to the M6 northbound in Sandwell has closed a lane. In Slough, 3 lanes are closed on the M4 westbound between junctions 6 and 7 due to a broken down vehicle. And on the trains, expect delays on Avanti West Coast between Haymarket and Carlisle and Grand Central services between Stevenage and London King's Cross. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. The time is almost 20 to 2. And Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassing a transgender activist on social media, but found guilty of causing criminal damage after he threw Sophia Brooks' phone outside a conference in London last year.
Yes, the judge said that while Linehan's social media posts were deeply unpleasant, insulting and even unnecessary, they were not oppressive and therefore did not amount to harassment.
Now, whilst giving evidence, the Father Ted co-creator claimed his life was made hell by trans activists, accusing Sophia Brooks of being a, quote, young soldier in the trans activist army.
Well, joining us now in the studio is GB News contributor Connie Shaw. Connie, of course, this case is separate from the case of Graeme Linehan being arrested by a swarm of armed officers at Heathrow Airport, but it does feed into the same sort of narrative that Britain has been pretty terrible when it comes to free speech rights online. But this, a victory for free speech.
Yes, it is a victory, but like you say, Tom, this can be quite confusing because this trial happened around the same time as when Graeme was arrested by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow for completely different posts. And you're right, it does speak to the fact that the state seems to have a pattern of working with trans activists. When Sophia Brooks reported Graeme to the police for criminal damage and harassment, the CPS took his side straight away, it seems, as they did with the case at Heathrow when he was arrested for those tweets. Now, it is a victory because he has been cleared of harassment, and that was in relation to things he'd said online, things that he'd said to Sophia at the time, but he has been done for criminal damage because Sophia Brooks, at the Battle of Ideas last year, pursued Graeme, following him around, putting his camera right into Graeme's face, and Graeme said in the trial that he was just angry and smacked the phone away, and that's why Sophia went after Graeme for criminal damage. But the Free Speech Union is funding Graeme's appeal for that conviction because we believe that it sets a dangerous precedent for trans activists to play heckler's veto to try and shut down lawful debate. And you may remember the case that Susan Smith from Women's Scotland had a similar incident happen up at Holyrood when a trans activist came with music blaringly loud to try and drown out the voices of women, and he accused Susan of criminal damage to his umbrella. Now, of course, Police Scotland have dropped those charges after the FSU intervened. Now, that's very similar and arguably similar to Hamid Koskin's case as well, where because someone retaliated...
Hamid Koskin
is the Turkish asylum seeker who burnt a copy of the Quran in protest outside the Turkish consulate, was found guilty of causing alarm, harassment and distress because someone else tried to come and stab him afterwards. And so allowing these cases to pursue with, for example, Graeme being convicted of criminal damage gives the precedent that trans activists basically can wind up people who are wanting to critique trans ideology by winding them up and then eventually getting them convicted by going to the police and saying that they were the one harassing me, even though very plausibly I think it was Sophia Brooks who was harassing Graeme.
Well, obviously this has been something that's been going on for quite some time, and Graeme reacted outside the court after the proceedings. I think we can take a listen to that now.
I'm very pleased by today's verdict. The judge found me and the women who gave evidence on my behalf to be credible, honest witnesses, and said that my actions were not criminal and did not constitute harassment. The judge commented that the complainant, a well-known trans activist, was not truthful. There are a group of dangerous men who are determined to bully women and girls and to misuse the courts and police in furtherance of a misogynistic agenda. I'm proud to have stood up to them, and I will continue to do so. I'm grateful to the Free Speech Union for their unwavering support and for helping to ensure that those who speak out against these dangerous activists are protected.
Now, Graeme said there that he's proud and he's pleased, but do you think he feels a profound sense of relief as well that he has been, given the green light on the first charge there?
Absolutely. I mean, it is a win for free speech, particularly as the judge said. His comments were, in the judge's words, unnecessary, maybe, offensive, but that doesn't mean he's not allowed to say them. It wasn't harassment, and that is what we're concerned about, that even though people might say unpleasant things, the right to freedom of speech is pointless if it doesn't allow you to be offensive. And so, yes, I can completely get why Graeme is so happy, and we're so happy for him at the Free Speech Union. And of course, like we were saying earlier, this is not the first time that he's been targeted, which is one of the reasons why he's moved to the US, because he simply cannot get away from the persecution that he's faced at the hands of trans activists, because he was one of the first people to start speaking up about this in sort of 2018 time, and he had his colleagues in the entertainment industry completely desert him, who have criticised him and tried to distance themselves from him. He can't get any work here anymore, and when he did return to come to this trial, he was arrested by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow for other tweets. So understandably, he's moved away to where free speech is far better protected in the US.
It is extraordinary. I mean, a lot of people... I always find it extraordinary when the Prime Minister is asked about free speech in this country. He says, we have free speech, we've had it for a long time, and yet, I'm sure we all could give you a list as long as your arm of people who've been either arrested, convicted or interacted with law enforcement for words that they have posted online, not even targeted at anyone in particular, but opinions, for political opinions. People have had interactions with armed police in this country. It's just astonishing. Connie Shaw, thanks so much for coming in and talking through that really important case.
We can bring you some developments from that breaking line this afternoon. About 150 firefighters are tackling a fire which has broken out at a warehouse in West London. You can see the pictures now on your screens. That came after residents reported hearing huge explosions. And of course, any more pictures or any more lines on that story, we'll be bringing you the latest on that here on Good Afternoon Britain.
Absolutely, but just to reiterate, these are live pictures now of that fire at a West London warehouse with a significant response from the fire brigade. We'll keep an eye on that one.
Well, elsewhere, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come on today's show.
Yes, disability benefit claimants will no longer be able to claim BMWs and Mercedes cars through the taxpayer-subsidised Motability scheme, after ministers highlighted the unfairness that the scheme presents to working families.
But meanwhile, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, we've got some wet weather pushing through the Mediterranean this week. It should turn drier by the time we get to the weekend, however. In the Canary Islands, it's looking relatively dry, highs around 19 degrees. A little bit cooler towards Lisbon, 11 or 12 degrees. Now, here's that wet weather I mentioned. It's moving across parts of Italy, Slovenia, as well as Croatia and into Greece later on this week. But parts of Italy, as well as Croatia, should get drier by Friday or Saturday. Temperatures remaining a little below average. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
First of all, are you coffee or tea?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Both, yeah.
If you're having tea, is it herbal tea or is it normal tea? I say normal tea.
Real tea.
Real tea. And is it milk or no milk?
Obviously milk.
Obviously milk. Final question before I read the piece. Milk in first or last?
Second.
Yeah, second.
Afterwards, if you've got a bag, but obviously if you're brewing it yourself, then you want to actually just check that it's brewed
I'm
properly.
from Wrexham. We just put the milk in, tea bag in the mug.
What?
Pour it in, and that's it. What's wrong with that?
And at this point, we stop talking.
It doesn't
brew properly. No.
Well, look, why doesn't it brew properly?
Because it stops the brewing.
You know exactly the right colour to bring it out, and you put it's a builder's tea.
What my dad says.
Well, anyway, the average tea drinker has 62,000 cuppers in a lifetime, costing £6,222. I'd argue that isn't correct, because it's £4 for just a cappuccino, isn't it? Certainly in London now, at least £4. Most of the money is spent on milk, averaging 6 pence a cup again. Tea bags cost around 4 pence each, and electricity to boil the kettle comes to 2 pence per day. And one of the top tips is only put the amount of hot water that you need to boil in, because that saves you money on your electricity.
But 62,000 cups in a lifetime, they've not met my mother.
Well, she's 162.
Honestly, it's every opportunity.
Is it? I think that's nice.
Exactly.
If I'm left to my own devices, I'd have a good 3 cups a day.
Yeah.
Of tea
Per hour?
In the morning, I'd have maybe 5 cups of coffee.
Do you get jittery?
Yes.
Do you? See, I know I'm
What
at the point. No, never. I'm trying to do my 1 meal a day OMAD.
Yeah.
So I have coffees all the time, you know, and I don't get jittery. I don't think.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. The time is 10 to 2. Disability benefit claimants will no longer be able to lease BMWs and Mercedes after ministers raised concerns it was unfair for working families.
Well, the taxpayer-subsidised Motability scheme will stop offering the cars immediately as part of an overhaul to prioritise vehicles that serve disabled people's needs.
BMW said it would be disappointing for many of their customers who participated in the scheme.
Well, joining us now is Danny Kelly. Danny, this is a pretty extraordinary thing, isn't it? That you could get a taxpayer-subsidised Motability car that was... some of these cars were worth £100,000. I mean, isn't it just the most remarkable thing that this grift ran on for quite so long?
It is extraordinary, Tom. You must balance that with the fact that the more expensive the car, the more of a deposit the recipient of the car has to give. Now, say, for example, I can give you a real-life example. I know a 22-year-old girl who has told doctors she has ADHD. The doctors have agreed with her, and she has some form of PIP payment, and she's 22, and she's driving an Audi A3 S-Line automatic. Now, what is so galling for a lot of people watching and listening to this broadcast is that although she had to put £4,000 deposit in, you could argue, well, why is she getting financial state intervention if she's got enough money in the bank to release £4,000 of it to drive an Audi? Well, a 22-year-old is driving that top-of-the-range £40,000 car, and she's getting free insurance, she's getting free breakdown cover, she's getting free servicing, she's getting free road tax. And that's what rubs people up the wrong way.
Well, moreover, Danny, you would perhaps say, wouldn't you, that not to diminish ADHD as a condition, but how does that impact one's ability to drive? Why, some of these conditions, why are they included on the scheme anyway? I think that could be something that would actually rub people up the wrong way. I know people who are on the scheme, and rightfully so, because their driving ability is impacted by a condition they have. But then I'm sure many viewers would be arguing, OK, but why would ADHD or other conditions that are of a similar ilk, why does that impact one's ability to drive?
Well, I agree. I think we agree that this young woman shouldn't be the recipient of such a fabulous car at the taxpayer's expense. She would argue that she needs it to get around town. You could easily throw the counter-argument back, well, just get the bus. You know, you've got enough dough in the bank to give an Audi dealer £4,000. And this is the core of it, Sophie. It's the perception of unfairness. Now, Nigel Farage has been banging on about unfairness when it comes to lads coming over on dinghies and getting 3 square meals a day and not having to pay for heating in decent hotels. It's the public perception that Labour are tapping into, in my opinion. The hard-working, working-class mums and dads are having to drive around in battered old second-hand cars and pay for that insurance and pay for that road tax.
Well, that's the point. I mean, if Motability provided decent second-hand cars, or even just cheaper cars, I mean, if they just provided a nice little Fiat or something, I mean, why is it that some supposedly disabled person has to drive a BMW rather than a Fiat, and that would somehow help them? I mean, it is bonkers. Danny Kelly, thanks so much for joining us. Let's hope this is a rationalisation.
Absolutely. This is Good Afternoon Britain here on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, so don't go anywhere. But first, let's take a look at your weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A beautiful day out there, crisp but bright, dry and sunny for most of us, albeit with showers for some. Those showers most likely across North Sea coasts as this area of low pressure pulls away. We've got a northerly wind bringing in some showers into eastern England, northern Scotland as well, and 1 or 2 into Pembrokeshire and Cornwall. But these are the exceptions. For the vast majority, especially inland parts of the UK, we're going to see clear blue skies, lighter winds, and as a result, a beautiful day out there, but a chill in the air, temperatures of 7 to 9 Celsius in the south, 5 to 8 further north. And then as we go into the evening, widespread frost starts to form, temperatures dropping away quickly after the sun goes down, particularly across much of Scotland, away from coasts where we're going to see generally frost-free conditions and 1 or 2 showers continuing. Also into the west of Scotland, the far west of Northern Ireland, we will see a thickening of the cloud through the evening as the next system very slowly starts to move in from the west. But under the clear skies elsewhere, overnight it is going to be a chilly night. A widespread frost, temperatures dipping to -4 to -6 Celsius. In rural spots, a little bit less cold around coasts and in main urban areas. But nevertheless, the showers tending to ease away to the east. We've got thicker cloud rolling into the west, and that'll lift temperatures by dawn across Northern Ireland, western and central Scotland, West Wales and the far southwest. And you can see that cloud creeping its way west to east through the morning. But we keep the sunny skies across the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast until the afternoon. Outbreaks of rain spread into the rest of the country. Light to moderate, but heaviest over northwestern hills. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 26th of November. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Sophie Reaper.
Now, breaking news. Could there be peace in Ukraine? American media is reporting that Kiev has agreed to a peace deal brokered by Donald Trump.
Back at home, the Chancellor brands her critics misogynists and urges Labour MPs to unite behind her budget. Less than 24 hours to go now. Will it be the nightmare before Christmas?
And Father Ted co-creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared at Westminster Magistrates Court of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks, but was found guilty of criminal damage to her mobile phone.
About 150 firefighters are tackling a fire which has broken out at a warehouse in West London. That's after residents reported hearing huge explosions.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had.
The chairman of the BBC, Samir Shah, apologises to licence fee payers over the Trump documentary chaos. But it's been revealed that BBC News internally argued the Trump edit was justified.
A new study forecasts that between 1 and 3 million UK jobs could disappear by 2035, all thanks to AI. Could your job be in the firing line?
And an East London pub has introduced a child-free rule after 6 o'clock, following a slew of complaints. Now we're asking, should all British boozers introduce a child curfew? Well, it's an interesting moment. So far, only American media is reporting this. We've not been able to independently verify this, and it is coming from the American side, not the Ukrainian side. So with all those caveats, could we actually see peace in Ukraine?
Tom, I can just tell you, it's not just American media now. Reuters are reporting, quoting a Ukraine official saying that Ukraine supports, in essence, the peace deal's framework following the Geneva talks. So that's a Ukrainian official telling the Reuters news agency.
I should also say we're seeing now on Reuters that Germany's Merz has also commented on this, is saying that he spoke to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the phone on Tuesday to discuss the status of negotiations about this US-backed peace plan. That's from a German government spokesperson. So several countries now giving the latest lines, of course.
It does really feel like things are moving very quickly on this story. Of course, we're sort of grasping at straws. We don't yet know what really the framework of this deal that Ukraine appears to agree to is.
It seems to be the deal that was hatched in Geneva. So basically, the amendments to the original maximalist Russian 28-point plan. We think it's something like a 19-point plan that has been agreed to by the Ukrainians and sent back to the Trump White House. So it will now, the ball will now obviously be in the court of the Russians as to what they do. They've already indicated, by the way, following some talks on Tuesday, that they would be unlikely to accept any significant amendments to their deal.
So whilst...
so still more to come, it sounds
one side agrees, the other side might disagree. Well, we'll have more on this huge news, this developing story, of course, throughout the show. But do send your comments in. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved, as ever. But shall we catch up on those latest news headlines?
Tom, thank you very much. A recap on that breaking news that we're hearing a major movement this afternoon on the Ukraine peace negotiations. A senior Ukrainian official has told the Reuters news agency that Kyiv supports the essence of the draft peace framework shaped in last weekend's US-Ukraine talks in Geneva. But we understand the most sensitive points still need to be settled directly between the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump. Ukraine's national security chief also says President Zelensky could travel to the US within days to try to finalise an agreement to end the war. Meanwhile, in Westminster, Sir Keir Starmer has told MPs he's received fresh briefings on the talks, saying his best understanding is that Washington and Kyiv have agreed a draft, but stressed this is not a new proposal and key details remain in flux.
The focus at the moment is on a ceasefire, so anything along those lines is a long way off.
But, we have to remember that Putin is the aggressor here. He is the one who started this war. On territorial integrity, the sovereignty of Ukraine is paramount, and that's why any questions about the future of Ukraine must be determined by Ukraine, and that is why I've been speaking frequently to both President Trump and President Zelensky. President Zelensky probably 5 or 6 times in the last 2 or 3 days on a whole range of issues.
Elsewhere, Father Ted creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassment but found guilty of criminal damage to the phone of a trans activist. Mr Linehan deliberately whacked Sophia Brooks's phone out of her hand and threw it in a road outside a conference in October. His trial was told in September. Westminster Magistrates Court also heard that the Irish comedy writer relentlessly posted abusive comments about Sophia Brooks on social media. But today the judge said Mr Linehan's social media posts did not amount to harassment, but that he was guilty of criminal damage in relation to the phone. He denied both charges. Mr Linehan spoke outside court this morning.
I am very pleased by today's verdict. The judge found me and the women who gave evidence on my behalf to be credible, honest witnesses, and said that my actions were not criminal and did not constitute harassment. The judge commented that the complainant, a well-known trans activist, was not truthful. There are a group of dangerous men who are determined to bully women and girls and to misuse the courts and police in furtherance of a misogynistic agenda. I'm proud to have stood up to them, and I will continue to do so. I'm grateful to the Free Speech Union for their unwavering support and for helping to ensure that those who speak out against these dangerous activists are protected.
Rachel Reeves has insisted she'll still be the Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Ms Reeves pledged that she wouldn't let her critics beat her and said Labour needs to show voters that it deserves a second term in power, but would only be able to do so if MPs stick together. She said that leaks in the run-up to the budget had been incredibly destabilising. It's after concerns were raised about tomorrow's budget, which is expected to raise £30 billion worth of tax. Addressing the Parliamentary Labour Party last night, Ms Reeves argued the budget should be regarded as a package and not a pick and mix, where MPs like the cola bottles but not the fruit salad. Shadow Levelling Up Secretary James Cleverly spoke to GB News.
I don't think it's legitimate to criticise person for basically their chromosomes. So I'm critical of her because she was completely dishonest in the lead up to the general election about their tax plans, that she has ramped up taxes, she is killing jobs, this constant briefing, U-turning, re-briefing, re-U-turning is crushing confidence in the British economy just at the time when we need it to be most active. These are the things she should be criticised for, not because she's a woman.
In other news, police have arrested a man over the giant illegal waste heap that's been towering over a village near Kidlington. The 39-year-old from the Guildford area was detained after a joint investigation by the Environment Agency and the South East Organised Crime Unit. The 40-foot mound was declared a critical incident last week. Officials say today's arrest is the first step towards holding those responsible to account. And about 150 firefighters are tackling a fire which has broken out at a warehouse in West London after residents reported hearing huge explosions. Firefighters were called to a 2-storey building on Bridge Road in Southall around 8:55 this morning. LFB says a warehouse and retail space have been affected. It sent 25 fire engines to the scene, including from Southall, Heston and Ealing. Residents in the area are being advised by the LFB to keep their doors and windows closed due to the large amount of smoke being produced by the incident. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3138 and €1.1387. The price of gold is £3,145 and 43 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,534 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 2. And further breaking news here, developing story this afternoon. US media is reporting that a Washington official said Ukraine has agreed to a peace deal brokered by Donald Trump.
Yes, this comes as other reports claim a Kyiv official has said Ukraine agrees to the essence of the peace agreement.
So, could this really be the end of the war in Ukraine? Let's speak to our Home and Security editor, Mark White. Mark, it seems like the sands are shifting.
Well, it certainly looks to be positive, but as I say, with all of this, we've got to await what the Russians say, because what appears to have happened is we got that 28-point plan that was agreed with the Russians, presented over the weekend, in which lots of people clearly were very surprised at just what Ukraine was being asked to give up. Vast tracts of land, reducing its military by almost half. But it seems since then we've had these negotiations in Geneva that have involved the UK, Germany, France, other European nations, and that has been put to the US, and they've agreed, it seems, on a common framework. So Ukrainian official now being quoted by the Reuters news agency saying that Ukraine supports the essence of a framework for peace following talks with the United States in Geneva, but some of the most sensitive issues of the framework remain to be discussed between the two countries. What those most sensitive issues are, we don't know. We have been told that the issues around reducing the size of the Ukrainian armed forces, where it was said as part of the 28-point plan they would reduce to 600,000, that will no longer be the case, that it's 800,000, which is not far off really what the Ukrainian current military strength is of active personnel involved in the fight with Russia. So let's see. I mean, it's obviously got then to be put to Russia now. They are about to meet with US officials, members of a Russian delegation in Abu Dhabi. So let's see what comes of that. They have signalled, the Russians, already in the last day or so that they would be unlikely to agree to any significant alterations to their 28-point plan after the Europeans got hold of what was being proposed.
Well, Mark White, thank you for joining us. And Tom, did you have another question? Apologies.
I was just going to say that there are sort of two elements to this. There's the territorial extent to which Ukraine is a country, and it's clear that whatever the agreement is, Ukraine's going to lose some territory. Perhaps the bigger issue is the rest of Ukraine, what will then be known as Ukraine, what it's allowed to do as a country. If there are all of these conditions on what Ukraine can do, which international alliances it can join, I mean, in some ways, then, it's not an independent country. But perhaps what's more important for the Ukrainians is less the land that makes up Ukraine, but what that land is allowed to do.
Yes. No, absolutely right. I think, you know, the acquisition or the handing over of some of its territory is factored in. How much will that be? But there are these other issues, and certainly the military issue of you not allowed, according to the Russian 28-point plan, to have any more than 600,000 in peacetime. When it comes to some of the other issues around the democratic nation and its ability, as you say, to seek alliances with the likes of NATO, the European Union, are you then effectively kicking away that country's sovereign status? It would appear so. And that would be very difficult, of course, for a free and democratic society like Ukraine to accept. So let's see going forward. But you know, there will have to be compromise, and significant compromise on both sides. How far are they prepared to take this compromise?
Oh, Mark White, thanks very much indeed.
Well, someone we haven't heard from yet is the United Kingdom. So let's join our political editor, Christopher Hope, now, who's at Downing Street for us. Chris, when are we expecting, do we think, to hear from Sir Keir Starmer? Do we think we will at some point today on this story?
Sophie, we will do. There's going to be a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing starting, we expect, in less than an hour's time. That's all the European countries which are trying to work with Ukraine to work out a future when some kind of peace deal can be agreed. Sir Keir Starmer has just been on his feet in the House of Commons. The government is pouring a bit of cold water on the reports from the States at the moment. They're saying it was likely that the update from Geneva was what the official in the US administration was referring to. Keir Starmer said this to MPs: "I suspect it won't be the whole of the agreement that needs to be reached. I'll look at the report and come back to you. If there's anything material to report, we will of course do it, and we'll stay on this all afternoon. There's a briefing with the PM spokesman at 3:45. I'll be there for that. As I say, the Coalition of the Willing call starts at 3 o'clock or earlier, mid-afternoon, so we'll see how that plays out. But it does seem things are moving quickly in America, but the UK is saying, just take it easy, we'll see what's being agreed here. It's nothing agreed yet, and of course, as Mark White says, we haven't even heard yet what the Russians think. But I'm here outside number 10 Downing Street, where a petition has just been handed in, almost a budget ritual of the campaigners for Fair Fuel UK, who are campaigning for this for the fuel duty to remain capped, as it has been for a number of years. And I'm joined now outside number 10 Downing Street by Lewis Cocking, the Tory MP, Lord McKinley, Craig McKinley, and Howard Cox, the founder of Fair Fuel UK. To you first, Howard Cox, how many have signed your petition?
Over 152,000, and we're delighted to have done that. And it could have been a lot more, but that's the time we've had to actually produce this. And so I'm delighted. Last year we had 130, this year 152,000.
And Lewis Cocking, why is this so important? Do you fear this government may lift fuel duty for the first time in many years?
I think they will. I think it's going to be a disastrous budget tomorrow, and they're really going to hit working people who they've said they will protect. This tax is one of the worst taxes we've got in this country, and will really hit hard-working carers that drive in our communities, and it will really hit the poorest in our society the most.
But Craig McKinney, do you understand, though, this government must raise money somehow? It has frozen fuel duty for so long, and they are moving towards electric vehicles. Is this not the correct policy?
Well, of course, they're just looking to spend. They can't seem to stop the spending tax, so they want to tax everything that moves. And literally, the thing that moves a lot in this country are vehicles. The EV promise of low taxes, that's likely to be broken with a new paper mile. Sadiq Khan is going to start raising congestion charge on EVs. The 5p fuel duty cut that we had during COVID, I have to say, is probably very highly likely to be lost this time. But it's the most regressive of taxes, going to hit the poorest hardest, all those who serve the community. And it could flow through the supply chain. It could even add 0.5% to inflation. So, I would beg this woman in number 11 not to do this. But sadly, I've got a feeling this might be yet another manifesto pledge that gets broken tomorrow.
And Howard Cox, for how long has it been frozen? Remind me when that happened.
Well, I started this campaign in 2011, and that's when Osborne was the Chancellor of Exchequer, and he actually reduced it by a penny, because at that time we were going to have a fuel price escalator, inflation plus 2 or 3 pence every year. And if it hadn't been for the campaigning work of good people like Craig and now with Lewis, we would have been seeing prices at pump probably 50p to £1 more at the moment. And let's not forget, at this very moment, we're still the highest tax drivers in the world.
And your sources are saying to you it could go up in April. This budget tomorrow, of course, will set out a lot of choices for April next year. The idea of doing it now is to give more time to make it happen.
Yeah, it's an unusual thing about taxes. Usually it happens at 12 o'clock at midnight, the changes. But last year, she actually said that she's going to keep it frozen until April 26th.
I just find Lewis Cocking, it's a tax on white van drivers. That's how it's seen often when this is discussed, a tax on working people in vans.
Absolutely. This is a war on motorists. Labour do not care about the working people up and down the country. My constituents can't afford for fuel duty to go up. They go out day and night working, paying their taxes, and they cannot afford to pay any more. The Labour government needs to get a grip and cut public spending.
We'll find out soon enough. Lord McKinley, thank you. Lewis Cocking, MP, and of course Howard Cox from Fair Fuel UK. Thank you for joining us. A tradition of meeting these guys on the outside Downing Street before any budget, but we'll see you next year, Craig McKinley's saying. But I fear it does seem that this tax may go up in April.
Well, Christopher Hope, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that live from Downing Street.
Indeed. Well, we can now get more on the budget with Campaigns Director at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck. Elliot, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Everyone keeps saying, don't they, that tomorrow is this huge day, lots of speculation, lots of rumours. What are you expecting?
Well, we're expecting a smorgasbord of tax rises, but really to understand what we're going to see tomorrow, you just have to look at the way that Rachel Reeves and the government are framing it. And they're framing it as a budget based on Labour values, which will expect those with the broadest shoulders to pay the most, and those on welfare to not just be protected, but to see their incomes increase through things like abolishing the two-child benefit cap. So what they're being very, very explicit about is they're going to come after productive working people that contribute to the economy. They're going to take more off them and give money to the unproductive people in the economy. And it's that policy that we've had for a number of years now that has been such a disaster. And yet this government is going to double down on it.
Well, I suppose arguably one of those, by definition, unproductive groups are pensioners. Pensioners would say that they've paid into the system all their lives, that they deserve more money in this budget. And clearly, no Chancellor is going to sort of go to war in the same way that this Chancellor attempted to last year with this incredibly important voter group.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Tom. And this is always a problem about talking about cutting spending. A lot of people like to talk about cutting spending, but then they leave off the table some of the biggest ticket items, including things like the state pension, things like the triple lock. Of course, pensioners are, I think, qualitatively different to working age people with benefits. For someone who's 75, they don't have the option to go back into work to earn an income in the way that someone who's 35 does. But I think you're absolutely right to point out that we can't talk seriously about bringing spending down over the long term, the sorts of spending cuts that this economy is going to ultimately need if we leave pensions off the table. But it is really interesting to look at the way that the Chancellor is framing this. We already have the most progressive tax system in the world, and yet, as I said, that she's going to double down on what has already been a disastrous tax, fiscal and spending policy over the last few years.
Well, you mentioned how the Chancellor is framing this, and that's actually a really interesting point, because we've heard from her in the past few days, haven't we, saying this isn't a pick and mix, it's a package budget, and speaking about how it's the misogyny that surrounds this budget that's causing all of this chaos. Do you think she's bracing for the worst? Do you think she's trying to get ahead of the game by saying all of these things in advance of the budget?
Yeah, it is interesting in the way she's pitch rolling, but no matter what she says, I think it is going to be disastrous tomorrow. It looks like they're now not going to come after our incomes, which is obviously a relief. That would have been a major manifesto breach, but she's going to come after pretty much everything else. So she's going to come after your savings, your pension, your house, even your milkshakes. It's been revealed today. So no matter how she frames it, tomorrow is going to be a disaster for the country. It's only going to do more harm to economic growth. And I really wouldn't be surprised if we're in a very, very similar situation next year, where we're talking once again about the need to raise taxes, talking once again about downgrades to economic growth and economic productivity. We are really stuck in a vicious cycle, and the Chancellor seems hell-bent on making it ever more vicious.
I'm old enough to remember when the Chancellor herself argued against a doom loop. Now it seems she's thoroughly engaged in one. But Elliot Keck, thanks indeed for joining us, Campaigns Director at the Taxpayers Alliance, of course.
Indeed. Now, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code now. Speaking of the budget, today we're asking, who should Rachel Reeves be prioritising, pensioners or workers? Well, you can see on your screens below that so far 47% of you had said she should be backing pensioners, and the other 53 have said workers. So very tight indeed today, Tom. Not like our poll yesterday, which I think was a 91-9 split, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so
but
a lot closer today.
I know people will have very strong views on this one. Perhaps, well, I think all of us will have a dog in this fight.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's not about pitting the two groups against one another. We want to know what you think about this, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to all this speculation, it seems that both pensioners and workers could end up worse off tomorrow once we see this budget. So it's not about pitting the two groups against one another. No. It's about seeing what you think.
And of course, today's workers are tomorrow's pensioners. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Indeed. A new study forecasts that between 1 and 3 million UK jobs could disappear by 2035. That's all thanks to AI. Could your job be in the firing line? But after the break.
I regret the mistakes that have been made and the impact that has had.
Yes, the BBC chairman Samir Shah apologises to licence fee payers over Trump documentary chaos. And it's been revealed that BBC News internally argued that Trump edit was justified.
All of that and more to come. You with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Oh, in unison.
We
that
did
was
indeed.
a nice
That's
one.
the first time
that
we've done it in unison.
wasn't
No, it's 27 minutes past 2.
Yes, cracks are continuing to show within the BBC after deep divisions were revealed between board members at the public hearing yesterday.
Well, Samir Shah's leadership was called into question after a fellow director spoke of sharp difference of opinion between the board members in regards to how the broadcaster should respond to bias allegations.
Despite these divisions, Mr Shah remained adamant that he would not quit his role as chairman. Well, joining us now is Associate Editor at the Daily Telegraph, Gordon Rayner. Gordon, thank you for joining us. He said that he's not a man who walks away from things, but should he be?
Well, I think the problem for the BBC and for the government, which appoints the chairman of the BBC, is that the Director General, Tim Davie, has already resigned. Deborah Turness, the head of news, has already resigned. And so if the chairman were to go as well, there would be a complete vacuum at the top of the organisation. So it's difficult to see what they would do if Samir Shah did go now. They'd have to find someone else very quickly to replace him while they're already looking for a new Director General. So they're in a mess.
It's clear that there are big internal disagreements at the BBC, and this is perhaps one of the interesting things that emerged today. before people might have gone in thinking that the BBC is sort of unifiedly sort of biased in one way, and perhaps that's true amongst the more junior staff, from my interpretation. But it seems that the board in particular, there were some voices that were saying, actually, there is some significant bias here that needs to be dealt with.
Yes. Obviously, we heard yesterday from 3 members of the board, including Samir Shah and Sir Robbie Gibb and Caroline Thompson, who sat either side of him at that select committee meeting, did talk about problems that there are in the organisation, not necessarily in the board. I think they gave a pretty unified impression of a board that tries its best to do its job, that they didn't accuse any board members of turning up to board meetings with bias, but I think that the impression that you got from watching that hearing was that there is an awful lot of problems throughout the BBC, not just within the editorial staff, but perhaps at board level. The board doesn't always agree on how to deal with problems. And I thought it was quite striking that Samir Shah told the committee that one of the things he's keen to work out is why the BBC takes so long to respond when a problem comes up, and he's the chairman. I don't quite understand why he needs to find out. Surely, he's the guy who should be able to make sure they do respond in a timely fashion, rather than saying, I don't understand why we don't.
One of the other things that came up, of course, was something that didn't come up. Now, the chairman apologised to the audience, apologised to BBC staff. One name that was very absent from his list of apologies was Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, of course, Donald Trump is still pressing ahead with his threat to sue the BBC for between $1 and $5 billion over that doctored Panorama documentary that we all now know about. I did think it was significant that he didn't directly apologise to Donald Trump. And I thought it was quite surprising that in his evidence, when he was talking about what was going on behind the scenes when the Telegraph revealed that doctoring of the Trump speech, that he was trying to sort of make the arguments for and against what had happened. He was talking about how other people had said there was a plausible case for doing that edit. Why is he saying that? I thought that was a real misstep by him. He should have just come out and said, look, this was a terrible mistake. We're really sorry about it. It won't happen again. We've taken steps to stop it happening again. Why is he sort of relitigating it in front of the committee and sort of making the arguments for and against? I thought that was very odd.
Well, Associate Editor at the Daily Telegraph, Gordon Rayner, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Very, very interesting story, that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, of course, we at GB News have reached out to the BBC for a comment, but sadly we're yet to hear a response.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain here on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, an East London pub has introduced a child-free rule after 6 o'clock in the evening, following a slew of complaints. Now we're asking, should all British boozers have a child curfew? Well, all of that and much more to come after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. The top stories. Kyiv now says it backs the essence of the US brokered peace framework after talks in Geneva, but key sensitive terms still need to be settled directly between President Zelensky and Trump. Ukraine's leader could travel to the US within days. And in the Commons, Sir Keir Starmer says his best understanding is that both sides have agreed a draft, but nothing is final. Rachel Reeves has insisted she will still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hit out at what she's called misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. Meanwhile, the Chancellor will double down on the government's commitment of continuing to slash NHS waiting times in this week's budget. And Father Ted creator Graeme Linehan has been cleared of harassment but found guilty of criminal damage to the phone of a trans activist. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. There's more news at 3 o'clock with Sam.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Tatiana. Lots more still to come on today's show.
Yes, a new study forecasts that between 1 and 3 million UK jobs could disappear by 2035, all thanks to artificial intelligence. So could your job be in the firing line?
All of that and much, much more still to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A beautiful day out there, crisp but bright, dry and sunny for most of us, albeit with showers for some. Those showers most likely across North Sea coasts as this area of low pressure pulls away. We've got a northerly wind bringing in some showers into eastern England, northern Scotland as well, and 1 or 2 into Pembrokeshire and Cornwall. But these are the exceptions. For the vast majority, especially inland parts of the UK, we're going to see clear blue skies, lighter winds, and as a result, a beautiful day out there, but a chill in the air, temperatures of 7 to 9 Celsius in the south, 5 to 8 further north. And then as we go into the evening, widespread frost starts to form, temperatures dropping away quickly after the sun goes down, particularly across much of Scotland, away from coasts where we're going to see generally frost-free conditions and 1 or 2 showers continuing. Also into the west of Scotland, the far west of Northern Ireland, we will see a thickening of the cloud through the evening as the next system very slowly starts to move in from the west. But under the clear skies elsewhere, overnight it is going to be a chilly night. A widespread frost, temperatures dipping to -4 to -6 Celsius. In rural spots, a little bit less cold around coasts and in main urban areas. But nevertheless, the showers tending to ease away to the east. We've got thicker cloud rolling into the west, and that'll lift temperatures by dawn across Northern Ireland, western and central Scotland, West Wales and the far southwest. And you can see that cloud creeping its way west to east through the morning, but we keep the sunny skies across the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast until the afternoon. Outbreaks of rain spread into the rest of the country. Light to moderate, but heaviest over northwestern hills. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers on the A55 eastbound are advised of planned maintenance between Junction 31 Carwys and Junction 32 Dolphin, with local diversions tonight from 8 until 6 tomorrow morning. On the Sandwell district, an incident on the M5 slip road to the M6 northbound has resulted in 1-lane closure, causing delays of 10 minutes. The M20 westbound entry slip at Junction 9 in Kent is closed due to a collision, with traffic expected to clear by 6:30 this evening. And on the trains, Grand Central and Great Northern services face major disruptions between Stevenage and London King's Cross. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 2, to be precise. Now, between 1 and 3 million jobs in the UK, to be less precise, could disappear by 2035 as artificial intelligence is rapidly shrinking administrative, secretarial, customer service and machine operation jobs.
The reports by NFER warned that job decline in these industries is happening far faster than previously forecast, with the body encouraging workers to be equipped with essential employment skills.
Should the government be doing more to help transition UK workers against the threat of artificial intelligence? Well, joining us now is the author and co-host of the Nowhere Office business podcast, Stefan Stern. Thanks for joining us. I mean, a lot of people will be slightly worried that the UK, as a service-based economy, is probably more at risk than just about any other country from a new technology that can automate laptop-based jobs.
Well, that key word is service, isn't it? And I think we know the difference between good service, I would say sometimes human service, and impersonal, we could even say automated service. So there's a trap here for businesses, the temptation of reducing the cost of employing human beings who need holiday and occasionally grumpy and so on and have problems compared with robots, but who nonetheless do provide what we recognise pretty quickly as a genuine human, and we hope interested, concerned service. So I think there's a risk for businesses cutting too fast and getting rid of the human factor too quickly.
It could be quite frightening for the people. We've just listed some of those jobs there. In the report talks about tradespeople, machine operators, administrative roles. If you're sat at home as one of our viewers and you do that job, it could be quite frightening, couldn't it? Perhaps to think that in the future, in the next few years, by 2035, in the next decade, I should say, that your job may no longer exist. And if you're, someone perhaps under 30, under 40, where you've got another 30, 40 years to go, that could be quite frightening, that essentially you could have to retrain at some point.
Certainly, we've got to adapt. We're told we need to be flexible for the labour market, and that goes for employers and employees. It's difficult to know, actually, at this point, what's going to be useful. A few years ago, people were told to become coders, weren't they? Everyone was told to become a computer whiz and a computer coder. Well, it turns out that the machine learning and the artificial intelligence is so clever that actually we may not need quite as many coders as we once thought.
Or everyone can be a coder. One of the words of the year is vibe coding, where you just type in what program you want and the machine makes it for you.
Well, that's certainly a skill, and you're on to a point there, Tom, which is to work with the technology, not be replaced by it, to try and be clever, to see how you fit together with the new kit, to do something valuable. And being valuable is the challenge to us all as employees if we want anyone to hire us. And my old dad used to tell me to know what other people don't know and be able to do what other people can't do. And that's very ancient advice, but it still holds good, I think. And that's the challenge to us all, to still be useful, to still be valuable.
But surely at some point AI must be unable to take over certain jobs. I mean, we were speaking earlier that we saw a report done by an AI journalist just a few weeks ago, but there must be jobs, for example, someone who builds a house. How could AI take that job, for example? Someone who cuts hair.
Robots.
That's frightening, isn't it? I mean,
I think you're right. I think there's some high touch in the jargon, high touch personal skills. Care, for example. Now, in Japan, they're experimenting with robot care. I'm not sure how many people here want to have that option. No, there are human things that we still need. And this first experience of work is also very important. We remember our first bosses and what it was like when we started out in work. Most of us can remember what it was like to be 18. Not everyone in public life apparently can remember what they were like when they were 18, but most of us do. And that first experience sets us up for our working life and our attitudes and our experience. And I think we're taking a risk here when we cut people off from the labour market too early and give them a very bad first experience of the labour market.
And yet it is astonishing, the progress that artificial intelligence has made just in the last 12 months. I mean, we now have artificial intelligence that can create human-level, realistic video. I mean, 12 months ago, it could get nowhere close. This is advancing at such a rapid pace. I wonder, looking at this sort of forecast that jobs will be replaced by 2035, I mean, it could be a hell of a lot sooner than that. Just on a technological capability. I mean, frankly, call centres could be replaced tomorrow. I can talk to my phone, artificial intelligence on my phone, and have a human-level conversation. I mean, it is extraordinary, this technology.
I think that's right. And actually, given the disappointing service, that word again, from some call contact centres, some of us might actually opt occasionally for the robot ahead of the disgruntled and bored employee. So, yeah, I think it is happening faster than we perhaps anticipated, and we're going to have to be versatile. This has always happened in the past in our economy, going right back to the Industrial Revolution and even earlier. New technology comes in, some jobs go, others come in, we have to adapt. All the digital jobs that people are doing now didn't exist 25 years ago when I was much younger and had hair. This is the story of human endeavour, of the economy, of trade and jobs. And I'm not pessimistic about it, but we do have to be very alert to the changes that are happening and how fast they're happening.
You mentioned, of course, that so many of us will have experienced when you call up a business for whatever reason and you get to the AI part. I have to say, and I'm sure, Tom, you'll probably think I'm a bit of a dinosaur, but I absolutely detest it because they just, and maybe this is my strong northern accent, they never understand what I'm saying. That is the development we need in AI, I feel, Stefan, that they need to understand a variety of dialects and not just RP, because I just can't, I can't get through to them. I always just have to say, Can I speak to a real person, please? So maybe that's what they need to develop on. Stefan, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Really interesting insight there.
Absolutely. Well, now there's only a few weeks left until Christmas. Is it that time already? Goodness me. Time is indeed running out. For you to enjoy it all on us, of course, £40,000 is available in tax-free cash, £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket, and a fantastically festive GB News goodie bag to boot. The best news is you'll make it all in time for the big day. Here's how to win.
There's just 30 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, good luck to anyone who's going to enter that. We wish you the very best.
Absolutely. Now, there's lots more still to come on Good Afternoon Britain, including this.
An East London pub has introduced a child-free rule after 6 p.m, following a slew of complaints. We're asking, should all British boozers have a child curfew?
But now, if you're in search of some holiday sunshine, well, here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, we've got some wet weather pushing through the Mediterranean this week. It should turn drier by the time we get to the weekend, however. In the Canary Islands, it's looking relatively dry, highs around 19 degrees. A little bit cooler towards Lisbon, 11 or 12 degrees. Now, here's that wet weather I mentioned. It's moving across parts of Italy, Slovenia, as well as Croatia and into Greece later on this week. But parts of Italy, as well as Croatia, should get drier by Friday or Saturday, with temperatures remaining a little below average. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's economy is at a crossroads.
And this budget day, every decision counts.
From taxes and rent to the cost of living. Whatever the outcome, the GB News family will be there
with expert analysis breaking down what it means for you.
Budget day all day tomorrow.
Only here on the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is now 10 to 3, and a pub in East London has hit the headlines after they announced a new policy banning children after 7 o'clock in the evening.
Yes, the pub made the decision following complaints from regulars that the pub resembled a creche and they'd removed the pool table to make room for prams.
So is this move a victory for anti-family killjoys, or do Britain's boozers deserve a child-free space?
Well, this is something that's definitely been getting our viewers very riled up today, Tom. Lots of people writing in. Tony Fletcher says 100% there should be a kids' curfew in pubs or have child-free areas. That could be a good compromise. Someone said all pubs should ban kids after 6 p.m. until today's parents learn how to control and parent their kids. There's nothing worse than going out for a meal and kids are running around rampant and shouting while their parents just sit there and do nothing. Someone also said it's up to the landlord, in their opinion. All children have to be out by 7 p.m. in my local. So, and then someone also said, why would anyone take their kids into a pub after 5 or 6 o'clock?
Well, there are pubs and there are pubs, right?
Yeah,
there are some pubs that you might go out to a family dinner at, and then there are others that are sort of drinks only.
Yes.
I mean, frankly, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Isn't this the whole point of a market economy? You know, some pubs will be aimed at those who just want to go for a nice quiet drink. Some will be the fancy gastro pubs that are welcoming of families.
That cost 30 quid for a roast dinner.
Right, exactly. But here's the wonderful thing. We don't have just one form of business in any other sector. Why do we want a national kind of regulation for this?
I like what Tony said about maybe having a child-free area because, I mean, like you say, it depends on the kind of pub. And also, I think, for example, next summer we've got the World Cup.
Yeah.
If you've got children who are under 18 and they don't have an ID yet, but they're huge football fans, why should they miss out on the atmosphere and the experience that you get? I think landlord's discretion is a good idea, and maybe a child. I don't like that this pub had to give up pool tables.
I mean, there are 17-year-olds who work behind bars. Are we going to ban them from going into pubs?
That is an interesting one, isn't it? Because by child, do they mean sub-18, not got an ID?
Or do they
are
mean
they
2-year-olds?
carving people just sat there having some fish and chips?
Yeah.
Or do they mean like this? If this pub's being referred to as a creche, then I do, and the pool table's gone to make room for prams. Clearly, it's an issue with toddlers and you know.
But look, I mean, some pubs might be. I mean, the area in which where the pub is might be an area with lots of families, and therefore they need a business to provide for them.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, if it's not, this is the wonderful thing about a market economy. If the business is not providing a good service to the people that want to use it, it will close down and something else will replace it. Maybe it's the case that this is a good business decision because there are more people without children that want to use it.
I think landlord's discretion is a good idea because, like you say, if in the area you've got lots of kids coming in, it's something like a hub for families, great. If you've just got loads of old geezers who want a pint, maybe that's the plan.
Well, also, I mean, if there are lots of old geezers and they don't have a sort of hole-in-the-wall pub, there's a market opportunity, as long as the bloomin' council gives it planning permission. Well, this has been Good Afternoon Britain. Thanks very much for being with us, both yesterday and today. It's been a delight. Martin Daubney's up after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A beautiful day out there, crisp but bright, dry and sunny for most of us, albeit with showers for some. Those showers most likely across North Sea coasts as this area of low pressure pulls away. We've got a northerly wind bringing in some showers into eastern England, northern Scotland as well, and one or two into Pembrokeshire and Cornwall. But these are the exceptions. For the vast majority, especially inland parts of the UK, we're going to see clear blue skies, lighter winds, and as a result, a beautiful day out there, but a chill in the air, temperatures of 7 to 9 Celsius in the south, 5 to 8 further north. And then as we go into the evening, widespread frost starts to form, temperatures dropping away quickly after the sun goes down, particularly across much of Scotland, away from coasts where we're going to see generally frost-free conditions and one or two showers continuing. Also into the west of Scotland, the far west of Northern Ireland, we will see a thickening of the cloud through the evening as the next system very slowly starts to move in from the west. But under the clear skies elsewhere, overnight it is going to be a chilly night. A widespread frost, temperatures dipping to -4 to -6 Celsius. In rural spots, a little bit less cold around coasts and in main urban areas. But nevertheless, the showers tending to ease away to the east. We've got thicker cloud rolling into the west, and that'll lift temperatures by dawn across Northern Ireland, western and central Scotland, West Wales and the far southwest. And you can see that cloud creeping its way west to east through the morning. But we keep the sunny skies across the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast until the afternoon. Outbreaks of rain spread into the rest of the country. Light to moderate, but heaviest over northwestern hills. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus